The council results for 1,309 candidates who were involved in cheating.
Wow.
1,300 were still involved in cheating. That's still a lot. But it has dropped drastically compared to 4,500 cases recorded last year.
4,000, yeah, it's dropped by 2/3.
71%.
Yeah, wow.
That's a huge drop, right?
Definitely.
And then there's also a happy story on page 3 of the Standard. Why no Kenyan child is limited. So this one is looking at the scores that candidates got in KCPE 4 years ago and what they were getting in KCSE this year. So you've got someone like Milka Wanjiru Kenywa, who got 179 in KCPE and got a B minus this time. Somebody got a 199, got a B minus as well. So some good improvement. People who are getting less than 200 marks, getting as high as B pluses and B minuses and C plus.
Of interest, it came to the attention of the president. And yes, they have been mentioned, and it's considered, and it is a remarkable feat. Now, this is something that parents should pay attention to.
Yeah.
In the lives of children and with exams, there are many factors you need to consider. One, there are people who just don't do well in exams. It's not that they don't have the knowledge. It's not that they don't understand it.
Yeah.
They do not.
Yep.
And then there are those who are what you call late bloomers. They may not appear to do well at the Form 4 level, but later on they do extremely
Very
well.
Right.
Yes. So just these two, there are many, but these two things are the things that I think parents need to consider when they look at the marks that the children have gotten, usually have brought home for them. No.
Yes.
They actually have brought it home for you.
For you.
That is what the examination, let's put it this way, the performance that they put into their work is indicated partially by those results. Okay? Now, the issue here is not what they have gotten. That is already a done thing. In fact, it's already in the past. The future. What do you do then? And this, of course, will bring to light, Eric, I'm sure you'll be talking about this later, how it is our educational system perhaps plays a part in these raising tensions that the results bring about. Yes, because if you have limited options, then you really want to focus on a higher grade.
Yes.
But if you have options, then the grading is just a grading, and you then look and it doesn't limit
matter.
you.
Absolutely.
It doesn't put a stop to your career pursuit.
True.
It doesn't mark the end of a certain era. It doesn't. It actually marks the beginning of an era.
New
Of
era.
Yes.
possibilities, actually.
Yes, it does.
The beginning of possibilities. And I think it's the numbers that a lot of parents are actually looking at and saying, it's the numbers. What did I get, as opposed to what has my child learned? But anyway, I guess that conversation continues.
Of course, the CS tells of politicians opposed to NEMIS. This system, he says, is not going anywhere. Remember the other day we were discussing it and we were saying how it appeared like school heads and some parents and some politicians were opposing this, the education management system, NEMIS, by not registering their pupils onto their system. Well, he says it's worked for us. It has worked very well. We are actually going to see enrollment of students into Form 1 using this NEMIS system, and it's gonna stay. It's here to stay.
It's here to stay. I guess just adoption of it. And speaking of things that are here to stay, the ministry is on course to roll out the CBC for grade 4 next month. Of course, understanding that all this time it has been a pilot project for grade 1 to 3.
Yep.
But then come January 2020, now the course or the curriculum will now start rolling out from 4 and onwards. Then to see it's actually something that is taking place. They're going forward with this. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out from next year.
So I wonder actually, so it's the 3s are going to go into 4
Yes.
with the CBC.
Yes.
But the 4s are going to go into 5 with KC, with the
844, as it were.
Okay.
Exactly. And so then after some time, then you will see the rollout. Now
Until the
go
4s
to
get
5
to-
and then to 6.
I see.
Right.
That's a good one. Maseno, Kisii, and Miranda top in Nyanza.
Not surprised.
Those are the ones actually that always will perform there that way there.
The Swahili ever say, Kizuri chajiuza. If something is good and is well spoken of or is beautiful, it doesn't require further advertisement.
No.
People who perform well or students who perform well will, or who believe they will perform well, will apply to these schools. So many of these schools then have the advantage of actually having from the very onset in Form 1, students who are already high achievers.
Yep.
Yes. So it is actually expected that they should do well.
Yeah.
In fact, let me say that they must do well.
They must do well.
Yes.
And fit in the legacy, as it were.
All right. So the Standard has coverage, like 20 pages of coverage on. They just released the results.
Yeah.
What other information do you have in the papers?
Well, Sonko case put off on ill health claim. A Voi court yesterday postponed Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko's plea, taking after he failed to appear in court on health-related claims. According to the governor's lead lawyer, Cecil Miller, Sonko was ill and could not appear in court to take a plea. The lawyer was accompanied by 6 other lawyers, including George Kithi, Jared Makolo, Salim Mwandumbo, Onesimus Mwinzi, Philip Kenga, and Steve Mogaka. The governor had been summoned to face assault, resisting arrest, and offensive conduct charges. And so this case has been put off, but the court was basically mandated to insist that he appears before the court as soon as he is well.
So this is they appeared in which court in Voi?
Yes, he was actually supposed to appear in court in Voi yesterday, but of course his lawyer showed up and said that because of the health situation and because of the fact that Sonko is on bed rest, he would not be able to appear in court. And of course, I think that stay was granted. Yes, it was granted, of course, with conditions that he then must appear in court to face those charges when he's well. And the prosecution did not object to that.
Interesting to note that the senators did not go to Voi.
Yes, the senators who are representing
Or in the legal team. Okay.
Friends of the court.
Okay. And then, of course, we also have this story. Win for judges in pay dispute for new appointees. Court orders the Salaries Commission to harmonize pay for all judges and backdate to the time that they were appointed to the judiciary. Justice George Odunga ruled that it was discrimination for lawyers appointed to the bench from private practice to get lower pay than those promoted from within the judiciary, and has ordered the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to harmonize their pay.
Yep. They won this one, haven't they?
That's a good one for them.
No, I think it's a good one, and it sounds. If I'm to believe what I'm reading, it sounds sensible and fair.
Makes sense. If we are, well, maybe this SRC was saying that you've worked as a lawyer before, and then you're being promoted into becoming a judge. And then somebody else has been working in the judiciary, maybe as a magistrate, and then they've gone up to be a judge. You should not be in the same scale.
Right. Speaking about the judiciary and judges, Odek was fit on a visit to his rural home. Court of Appeal Judge James Otieno Odek spent the better part of last Thursday at his rural home in Rarieda, Siaya County, it has emerged. Professor Odek, who was 56, was found dead at his Groove Hut apartment house in Kisumu on Monday morning. The caretaker of the member village home, Samuel Ongera, said Odek took Christmas shopping to his Asembo rural home on Thursday and showed no sign of illness. He spent some time there and then left for Kisumu in the evening. Witnesses, including judiciary officers and police who broke into the judge's house on Monday, said his body was half covered. So then again, it just throws us back into the spin, like just what we mentioned yesterday, that all indicators pointing to the fact that he was in good health and there was nothing wrong at that time. But unfortunately, his death has shown something else.
The family, if we're to go by even information that was in the media yesterday, there was the move or the suggestion that his body should be flown to Nairobi. But they said no. Let there be an autopsy first.
Yes.
Before the body is.
Before
They want to know exactly what caused.
What happened? They're not comfortable right now in terms of what could have been the cause of death.
Well, moving the body is like moving the evidence, isn't it?
Exactly.
So let them do the autopsy.
Let it
Find
happen.
out.
Let them go to the bottom of it. Today is Thursday. The pullout in the Standard is the home and away, the one that looks at the real estate. And the headline story is when the city comes to your doorstep. Hitherto rural areas close to Nairobi have witnessed a change of fortunes as the urban sprawl swallows them, and with it comes the good and the bad. There's a good story here by Peter Moirori who talks about apartment blocks where this happened would be right at home. A few weeks ago, this newspaper reported the bustling of a suspected underage sex ring in an apartment in Ruaka. And the apartment block where this happened would be right at home in a posh Nairobi suburb, which is what Ruaka is becoming. So the good and the bad as the city expands outside the normal borders. And the other day, of course, we were talking about when people are moving from hitherto rural areas
Right.
to or hitherto low-income areas to higher-income
Higher-end
areas,
areas, as it were. Yeah.
moving with the good and the bad as well.
Interesting to see.
Yeah.
Well, of course, President Donald Trump has been impeached. There, as of the paper from yesterday, there were calls for his impeachment, and we know that about 3 a.m., 4 a.m. this morning, he actually was impeached, of course, by the Democrat-led House of Representatives, and so they passed that vote, and according to the numbers, it was overwhelming. We'll have a look at that later, but I think the third president in history of the United States to ever be impeached. Whether he will be convicted is a whole other story, and of course we'll talk about that later, but landmark vote, historical vote as well as what we see it being called today.
And he's only the second one after Nixon.
Third, I think, no?
No. The second one after Nixon, who has actually been put in the position that is in, where there's actually an inquiry being taken to the Senate.
Right.
Now, Nixon, we know, resigned.
Yes, he did.
Yes.
Do you think Trump will resign?
No.
Well, Trump had timed it so well that soon after the vote, he was addressing a rally.
Yeah, the Merry Christmas rally took place right after that, and so I mean, and you can tell from the if the crowd calling is an indicator of anything, the fact that he's still quite popular amongst the people.
He's saying, these Democrats, have they seen my ratings in the last 4 weeks?
And that was the thing. Because,
Haven't they learnt a lesson?
This is what he took to them and said, this is what they're trying to do. They are basically, by impeaching me, they're impeding our progress as a nation. So,
you know something? That may be tough talk, yes, but some would argue.
he's rattled.
Yes. He's rattled. And impeachment, it doesn't matter how thick-skinned you are.
It's big stuff.
It's not something. I mean, how many presidents has the U.S. had?
This is 46 now.
Yes, exactly. And out of that, you join the infamy of being among the very few who've actually been accorded this particular privilege. It's not a pleasant thing. It's not pleasant. It doesn't matter how thick-skinned you are. And that amount of rhetoric, it may sound good, but remember, this particular process had even been opposed by people who were actually among, yes.
His supporters.
No. The very people who've impeached him had moderates who did not want this process to continue to begin with. And they changed at the last moment. He also has moderates.
They could change.
They could change. They could change.
Let's see how it goes, how it pans out. I predict that Donald Trump will come out of this much stronger and get into the 2020 election actually really trailblazing everybody else. It's 18 minutes past 6 o'clock. This is the situation amidst Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, you can download the standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store. And just for one subscription fee, weekly, monthly or annual, you get to access all of Standard Group publications. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
It's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation at 21 minutes past 6 o'clock. My name is Eric Latif. We have CT Muga, Nyeri, Thorn, and Duoko. And of course, we are live streaming the show as we always do every morning on Spice FM KE Facebook. Spice FM KE is our YouTube channel and www.spicefm.co.ke. Of course, remember you can follow the conversation on Twitter at Spice FM KE, and our hashtag is the Situation Room. Now, of course, we know yesterday the results for the KCSE were released, and we saw jubilation from those that did very well, those that performed well. The number of A's almost doubled this year compared to last year. The number of students who attained the university pass mark of C plus and above almost also increased marginally, but also significant. It's a significant number. And it brings in the conversation again, like we always have. So the number of students who did KCPE 4 years ago and qualified to get to secondary school. Remember, 4 years ago, there was no automatic transition. And those that sat the exam this year reduced. So there are some people who actually dropped out of the system in the course of the 4 years. Also, the number of students who performed well in this particular exam increased, and like I've mentioned, 667,222 total number of candidates, and those that got the C plus mark and above, 125,746. That's about 18.02% of all the students. Compare this to last year's, those who got the C plus grade and above, 90,377. That's about 13.7%. It shows that there's an increase in the number of those who have attained a grade that takes them to university. And this is usually the conversation that we have. Of course, when the CS for Education was releasing the results, he delivered a speech and he talked about the kind of improvements that we've seen, the number of students that are going to get the pass mark into university. He also talked about, I'd like to encourage our parents to think strongly about allowing their children to also access other education through TVETs and accepting that TVET is also an avenue for them. But it appears like we all do not, as a country, we still haven't seen TVET as one of the things that could happen to students who finish fourth form. The job market is increasingly demanding.
Bless you.
Bless you, Nyeri.
Excuse me.
The job market is increasingly demanding that students, people who are applying for jobs, actually also come with university degrees to seek employment. However, if you look at the number of those that have not attained the pass mark to get to university, either public or private, in the country, 81.9%. So let's just say 82%. 82% of the students that sat KCSE this year have not attained the pass mark to go to university. They need to actually find transition into the technical
What
and
percent, sorry?
vocational education training. 82%
Did not attain.
did not attain the C plus mark.
Right.
So those ones are not going to university. We seem always to forget talking about that number, and I'd like us to talk about that number today.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 541,000 students. What's their next step? Where do they go to after this?
What's their fate?
What's their fate?
How do you get to this one grade? Because I'm assuming you do quite a few subjects, don't you?
Yes.
So you do maths, English, history, literature, art, perhaps, computer science.
Let's start with the
across the
STEM.
board.
So you're going to have math, physics, chemistry, either biology, or you get into other subjects like electricity. Then you have...
Electricity is an A-level. They do it at KCSE
Yes.
as a subject.
As a subject. There are those that
Electricity.
choose. Yeah, you can choose electricity.
That doesn't fall under physics?
Nope, as a subject actually. Electricity, there are those that do power mechanics, then they go into languages. You have Kiswahili and English as compulsory, then you have now the others. You could do Spanish, French, German.
And then at the end of all this, they give you one grade, mean grade,
There's a
an
mean grade,
average.
yes.
of-
Every subject is graded. And then they look at the overall. It's like they give you a mean. They say, okay, this is what you've got, these are marks you've got, and they give you the marks, total marks, and then they give you a grade.
So if somebody gets, say, 100% in maths, but their sort of literature or comprehension of English is wanting, and they score very low, so say they score 10%
It brings down their overall.
to 60 or what have
Yeah.
you. So we
I
would
know
have,
that.
no, if it was those two that we were doing the mean of, it would be 55. So we're actually losing out on geniuses in certain subjects, because this is what then determines whether you're going to go to university or not. So people who are particularly good at, say, art end up not going to university if they didn't do well in the sciences.
Yes.
Okay, and this is a fair system. They haven't decided or looked at reviewing this.
It's global.
No, it's
a
not.
mean.
No.
It's mean entry. It is mean entry.
But that's not global.
It's mean entry.
It's yes, I know what it is.
actually-
As to whether it's fair or
in
not is my
every-
question.
in
when
every
it's global,
university.
it is global.
Yes,
it
in every
isn't.
university, it's mean
No.
entry.
No.
No, it isn't. There's certain
All right, tell us the
universities.
difference.
Okay, you can apply for university, biochemistry, and say Birmingham, and they say these are the grades we require. You need an A in biology and 2 C's, for instance. At that level, you've already reduced at 18 in the GCSE system. You've already reduced and selected your grades, your subjects, and what you're good at. So if you're good at biology but crap at arts, it doesn't bring your grade down. Do you see what I mean? By the time you're going into university, you've pretty much selected after GCSE, which is at 16, you've selected what you're good at, what you enjoy. So if I was good at the arts, I can score high grades and get into the university I want. I don't have to do all the subjects of which a mean average is then found, which of course will lower my grade and not allow me to get into university. We're losing out on, say, great mathematicians because they can't speak very good English, or rather their comprehension and written English perhaps isn't particularly good. We're losing out on the equivalent of our Mozarts and Leonardo da Vinci's, because there's artists in this bunch that perhaps are not very mathematical or scientific. Are you seeing my point here? There's people who are very good at specific subjects, but perhaps weak at other subjects that come in and actually lower the average. So as a country, we miss out on a whole pool of real talent.
Okay. So, in this country as well, if you want to do medicine, then there's a minimum requirement for per subject, for the strong subjects. Say in medicine, you need a strong marks, of course, in biology and others, right? But then the minimum entry to university for you now to be considered is C+.
Yes, but are you not
Just
getting my
like-
point?
just
There's
like you
somebody who
have-
who got below a C plus or a C, you would have missed the cut, right? If you get a C. Now, what if in that C or within all your grades you got 90% in art? So you're a great artist, whether it's fine art or whatever art you'd have gone into. You cannot get into university to do art,
Yes.
and this is okay.
This is the unfortunate.
This is
I
where
think.
TVET comes in.
This is
No,
it.
no, no. But
What-
look, even university entry, globally speaking, they have requirements. It could be a GPA, all right? They would ask you to have a certain pass within certain subjects that you expect to do. All of them have a criteria. There is no university on this planet that will not require certain specific criteria, without which even the consideration of the subjects or whatever it is you want to study will be considered. They all have it. They may call it different things, but they do have it.
But they minimize the possibility of this absurdity occurring in that, yes, you're asked for maths and English, a pass at GCSE
No, this
level.
one is C. It's a C that they ask for. In this country, you are now offered a bridging course.
But that C is derived from the mean average of all your grades, of which,
Yes, it
because you
is.
can be weak at certain subjects, so you're not particularly scientific, but you're very artistic and great, say, at literature. We miss out on poets. Perhaps this is why we're not producing Nobel laureates in
No,
this
no, no.
country.
That actually isn't the case.
When you're
because-
grading at the end of say high school in the UK, This is what, a GCSE.
No, you have A levels.
Right.
After GCSEs. At GCSEs, you do 10 subjects, and then you narrow that down. At 16, you narrow it down to 3 subjects that you're good at. This is what the universities will look at. They don't look at your GCSEs. So they don't look at subjects that you weren't particularly strong at. At 16, you choose, and there is disadvantages to this because it can be argued, are you informed enough at 16 to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life? Because it can narrow your choices. So if, for instance, you went for the arts at 16, you can't then choose to go into medicine if you decide, actually, I quite fancy the medical profession. But at 16, you narrow down your choices to 3 subjects, if you're very clever, 4 subjects. And these are the subjects by which you will be graded in, and you will be selected for the university.
For the university level.
Yes, so you choose what you're good at, and this is what the university looks at. So people actually drop all the sciences. You have people who do arts, so they do classics, history of art, and this is what they're very good at. And if maths came into that equation, pun intended, then you would find it would lower their grade significantly to a point where they can't get into university to do art, and probably these are the best artists in the world. Do you not see the conundrum?
Listen, so the conundrum here is before we actually delve ourselves into whether they've been locked out. So that's C+. If you've gotten the C+, and that's a lower C+, that means that you have performed.
There's a lower and higher C+.
It's a C+.
Right.
If it means that you have performed relatively well on several subjects. Your strong subjects, of course, are going to propel you. So the likelihood of you getting an A in math, an A in physics, and an A in chemistry, and you're so strong in sciences, and then you've performed dismally in English and Kiswahili, for example. So in English and Kiswahili, you got a C and a B minus. You're still likely
That's not
to get
too
that
bad.
C+.
Yes,
No,
but
you
let's
end up
say
with a B.
yes,
if
but
you
let's
follow what you're
say
saying.
let's take it to the complete end of the scale. It's a spectrum. So let's say you get an A in art, right? And then you fail everything else, but your art is world class.
Right.
You fail to get into university.
Yes.
Most
And
definitely.
you go to
Yes,
TVET.
because the other subjects would lower.
And that's why you go into the technical vocational education training.
Or
And-
repeat the exam.
Or you repeat the exam.
But you can keep repeating it, but this is not your forte. And what they're doing is ignoring your strengths. Basically, what the
Actually,
system
they're
does.
not.
TVET now
Actually,
gives you
they're
the
not.
opportunity to actually go and practice that trade.
But you
And
want to
once
go
you
and get a degree in fine art,
You can
which
still
you can't
continue.
Pass
do.
the other
And you can
subjects.
still
No, but you're
continue.
not good at the other subjects. Are we seeing what's happening here? Not every
No.
individual is different. The
And
education
not
system.
every individual can go to university in Nyeri.
But if somebody wants to go to university for a particular subject and they're very good at it, they lose that chance by virtue of the fact that perhaps they're
The
weak in
chance
other
is
subjects.
not lost,
There is
Jerry.
something
The
wrong with
chance
this
is
system.
delayed. Once
Are
you go to
you not
TVET,
seeing
There
anything
is
wrong
no
with the system?
I am
perfect
not
system.
seeing
No,
what's
I
wrong.
don't see it at all.
Once you go to TVET and you get, let's say, a certificate or a diploma, you can then reapply to go to university using your diploma. And universities also still look at, if you come with a diploma and this is a diploma in this particular trade, you can get into university to study this course.
So basically,
People have
I'm
gone
being
that route.
penalized because I am not strong in the sciences, in maths, but I am brilliant at art. But I will be penalized. I will have to go through some other route.
And that is it.
There is
Actually,
something
that's how life is. Not
There
just
is
university.
something
Life
fundamentally
treats
wrong
people.
with
life
this system.
works that way.
Fortunately, unfortunately, what the system is trying to do, and it's very clear, is that they're trying to have a holistic assessment of what you're able to do, and that is what they use to evaluate you by. So they're saying in all of this, in all that we test you with, that we want to take an average and say that average is what will now propel you to the next level, asking that you do well across the board. And that's how they look at it.
Look,
holistically,
universities abroad,
as opposed to by subject.
some of these highly acclaimed universities in the world, even if you want to do these really high-end courses that require massive science like medicine, they still expect you to have done something in the humanities.
Yes.
It's a consideration. You have to have it.
And
doing
language.
it and being
Yes.
able to excel in it,
And
because the grades
language.
aren't a reflection of your comprehension of it. No, doing
They
it
are.
and no, they're not.
Yes,
and
they
there's
are.
much debate around it. Some people have great
They
memories.
are. They are
No,
not
they're-
the most
they're a-
comprehensive, but they are.
They're a memory test. Comprehension, you should be able to take in all the books you want, and then it's the analysis of the extraction of this material in terms of content, and then what you do with that extraction. Are you able to compare and contrast? Are you able to analyze? That is comprehension. Being able to retain information. Retention is not a test of intelligence. Memory can be said to be part of it, but at this day and age, you don't need that, considering you have information at your fingertips with the mobile gadgets and so forth. So we've got to reevaluate this system. I find it extremely
The
unfair.
topic
There's
I'm
fun-
raising this morning is actually where you've taken us. It's about our attitudes
I
towards
was in your head,
university.
Derek. Uh-huh.
Our attitudes towards university. When we think that once you have not attained a certain pass mark to get into university, then your life is ruined, then you have been punished, then you've been penalized, that's a wrong attitude. Because this 81%, 82% of students will feel that they have failed, that they have been penalized, that they do not cut it, they're not good enough. And this is not the case.
And
if you
herein-
actually, you have your strengths, you can apply for any of the TVETs. They offer technical courses, they offer all manner of courses. You can go through that system.
So they're
Even
vocational
universities,
courses, yeah.
vocational courses. You can go through that system, certificate, diploma level,
And
higher
how long
national
does that
diploma.
take before you then go to
A
university?
year, 2 years,
Two.
it depends.
Yeah.
Yes, it depends on the course.
Is what I'm saying here, is there really any need to take somebody through that because they weren't
Is there
strong
a
in-
need for everybody to go to university?
That's another question. But if somebody does want to go to university, they should not be blockaded by this means test, by this means average of all your subjects. This is where that's saying, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, then it will grow up or it will live its whole life thinking it's stupid. Now, if you're judging me by my ability to perhaps read and write and comprehend Swahili, then I'm going to miss the cut, no doubt.
Let's take a look at traffic and then we come back to this conversation. 25 minutes to 7 o'clock.
Traffic.
Let's kick things off in Mombasa today, where we're being told by the ferry services that 4 ferries are actually in good operation and they're waiting for the 5th one to join. So the operations are looking smooth today, taking people from the island to the mainland and, of course, back. All right, looking at other parts of the country, coming into Nairobi and seeing what's happening. Not much traffic at the moment. Coming off Mombasa Road is not too much of a headache. It's your normal traffic and getting you to the city state, or rather to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. Coming off Langata Road, Ngong Road and the Thika Superhighway is not going to be so much of a problem right now. Things definitely might change. Looking at the area right around Kasarani Mwiki, of course, we have some problems there because of the state of the roads and traffic is building up already because of that. We'll see what Wakiwe looks like in a short while, but for now everything looks really, really good. We'll let you know if it changes. 0719012600 is the number to call. Should you see something that is out of order, let us know.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
I want to give you a story about a friend of mine. We were studying together, and she got an offer into Oxford, which of course is one of the more prestigious universities and renowned for being incredibly difficult to get into. And she had what you call a conditional offer. So based on these grades, if you get these grades, you will come in, because there in the UK, you apply probably 6 to 7 months before you go into the university. And the assessment is usually based on your predicted grades, but you also go for interviews. And she went in for an interview at Oxford, and her conditional offer was that she gets 2 E's. This is A, B, C, D, E. This is how much they wanted this candidate. Of course, they knew she would do better, but what they were saying to her is, whatever you get, we want you in our university. I don't know what aptitude test they did during the interview, but they realized she has something that they want and the grades don't matter. Now, when we do this and we think like this, then we will get the best out of people. Not everybody is good at exams, because I know for sure that KCSE doesn't work with coursework. Some people get nervous around exams. Some people don't have a good memory for whatever reason. So there needs to be other factors that are considered other than the grade. Now, when we further narrow that down and make it a mean grade, what they can do is perhaps say you must pass maths and English. That's a basic requirement, and just a pass. And then if you want to study art, you have to get an A in art. If you want to study medicine, you have to get an A in these subjects. Now, that would work better, because what you'd have is somebody who is very good at art being able to get into the degree of their choice. Just because they couldn't do maths and they got a C in that, they shouldn't be discounted, or we shouldn't ignore these people. These are gifted people, perhaps. Somebody could be gifted in music.
Right.
Why shouldn't they be able to go to university and further pursue their musical career and whatever it is that lies in store for them? That way we can get people in the country tapping into their ability and giving back to society. We need artists. And I'm not just talking about, I mean, of course, they're great artists, the likes of Kaka King and so on. Those are artists. But perhaps, artists who've gone through university. But we're not seeing enough of those. It's not enough of an industry. We're saying, yes, the humanities are arts, but we're not seeing certain talents coming through. And I think it's because of the system. You see people going into carpentry, and when you see what they produce, it's a work of art. It's genius.
Yeah.
Yet they haven't had the opportunity to go into university where they can refine these skills, where they can learn more and tap into shared knowledge, universally shared knowledge, to further better themselves and refine their skills and give back to us. There's a whole pool of people with talent and with gifts that we're missing out on because of this scoring method that we have here. I think you agree today.
No, I'm not in agreement. And I'm just watching you speaking, and I'm just
You're
thinking,
watching?
all right, yes, I'm wondering,
I mean, but what system
at what
is...
point does this university
No,
become the one
I'm
and
actually
all?
asking, what system is Jerry talking about?
Yes.
Because if it's the Kenyan system, it's none of the things you're saying. It's absolutely none of the things you're saying. And
I'm
if,
saying it is not. Yes, what the Kenyan system does is actually cut people out because it gives you a mean average
and I'm
of all
telling you
your
that's
scores.
not what it does.
I
There
asked
is
at the
no-
beginning of this conversation, I asked, how does it work?
We explained
Is
it to you.
And you said it's the mean average of all your grades out of, is it 10 subjects you do at KCSE? Thereabouts?
Thereabouts, I'll tell you.
Yes.
shortly.
So you told me it is the mean average.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
it doesn't take too much common sense. It's not rocket science to figure that this could lead to absurdities whereby you can be extremely good and bright and gifted, I say, in a particular subject, but as a result of your weaknesses in other subjects, your mean grade is lowered and your potential or your likelihood to get into university and further your career in whatever subject it is you're very good at is limited. There is something fundamentally wrong with that system, no
And
doubt.
What choice does the system give you?
How do you mean what choice?
Yeah,
does
what
it-
Alternatives.
What alternatives do you
Yes,
get?
you're talking about TVETs, and you said yes, you can then go and do 2 years
Or you can
diploma
resit
and
your
so on.
exam.
But why you could resit your exam and still
Yes.
get the same mark because you are weak at maths?
Yes.
It's not that you
One
had a
of the
bad
things
day
that
that
Eric
day.
did, he read, there was a list of students who did very poorly in Standard 8 exams and then proceeded to excel. Why? They may not have gone to the top national schools in the country, but they did get a place to go to, or they did study, and they have now done well. The Kenyan system does offer a second chance. It's not as though it shuts all
It
doors.
does, but why shut people off in the first place and get them to go to vocational colleges, whereas they could go into university?
How many people go to the university in the UK, of all the people who sit the exams?
They do have
Let's start with
alternatives.
how many people do GCSE go to A levels?
They do have. I don't have the
Percentage.
statistics. I don't have the statistics in front
Average.
of me. I would say over 60 to 70%.
No,
so
And that's
no,
that's growing. I don't know.
49%.
Oh,
So
it's 49.
49%.
Have the ability to go to university, meaning they've passed,
No, I'm
they
talking
could go
about
to university.
GCSE to A level. You
No,
have the figures in front of you.
I'm talking about university
Okay, I'm
because the
responding
discussion
to
was
Eric's question. Eric asked me how many people move from GCSE to A level.
All right.
Now I don't have the figures in front of me, but if I was to give a ballpark figure
there's
from
a 40%
from my
that is-
feeling,
that
no,
is
I haven't
left
given you a
out.
figure. The 40% is A level to university according to CT. We'll look at those statistics.
No, according to me, they are 49%. We're talking about university
49%.
entry.
That
University
go
entry.
into
I'm
university
actually
after
now,
the GCSE.
I'm still at the GCSE, going with an average of 60% who transition from O level to A level, 40% dropout at O level.
40%. No, they don't drop
60%.
out. There's the BTech. There's other vocational courses you can absorb into.
No. We are going with
We're
the
heading to the
argument.
university.
We are going with the argument. 40% drop out at that stage. They are not going to
Yes,
university.
but anybody who
they will
wants-
not find themselves in the
a-
university
anybody
because they're
who-
not going to A level. Wait,
Anybody
let's
who
step
wants
by
to go
step,
to
Jerry.
university, if they scored very well in a subject that they are interested in, they will have the opportunity to go to university, whether or not they scored badly in other grades, in other subjects. If they scored extremely well, i.e., an A in a subject that they're interested in, and they want to go to university, they will have that opportunity. In this system, it doesn't allow you. Yes, there's another route, but why have to create that alternative? We can rejig this system so that if you're
46%,
particularly good at something.
46% of those that sit the A levels are the ones that actually end up in university. That's what you're saying, City?
He says
I'm
49.
saying,
49.
I'm saying of those who are in high school, because you need to be in high school, you need to obtain certain grades then. Of those who sit those exams, 49% of them have the qualifications that could get them to university. So if they wanted to go to university, they could go to university. There's a point I'm trying to make here.
51% mean they don't have a qualification to go to
No,
university.
they do not.
But why? That's very unfair.
No, it's not unfair.
You should allow them. I mean,
is
they're
not
strong
unfair.
in one subject.
All
Absolutely.
universities have a minimum requirement. This is the point I'm actually trying to make.
Yes, but what you don't want to do is create a minimum requirement that cuts people off unnecessarily
requirements
because
cut
you're
people
judging
off,
them on such a
Jerry.
broad scale. Yes, they
That
do,
is
but
not a broad scale, Jerry.
it is when you take
How
a mean
many
average
subjects are
of
we
10
talking about?
subjects.
Not
So
10,
is it
not
8?
10. Count with me, all right? Let's go. English. Say one.
No, I'm not in
No.
class, Eric.
Let's
I'm
just-
sorry. No, you can count them and tell me how many
Listen
they
to
are.
them, and then so I'm going to say them. You tell them how
I'll
many
tally
they are.
them. Go on.
English, Kiswahili, math, physics, chemistry, geography, CRE, art. How many are those?
8. The 8 subjects.
Yep. So it's a mean of those.
It's a mean of those.
It's a mean of those.
Now, what I'm saying, there is something that is not right.
And
that-
for all of them, for all universities, you'll find that languages are a must. Right?
You need no
Language
All
is a
universities, what in Kenya?
Yes, language is a must. Even the ones, if you look at entry levels for UK universities,
At
they'll tell you,
GCSE, so there's a basic
show
in
some
that
proficiency
at
in
GCSE.
language.
At GCSE, yes, you need a basic of at least a C. But imagine there's a lot of Chinese students that come to the UK, and English is of
and
course
that's
a
why they do-
barrier.
Hurdle,
That's
right.
why they do
It's
the
a
IELTS
hurdle.
and the others.
And they do. So they have basic English so as to understand, not to comprehend and interpret poetry,
basic
which is what
English is
KCSE
not
tests
Jerry,
you
the
for.
same applies if you go
Now-
to China
now-
to study.
Yes,
you will
is
study
need
Chinese.
a basic. It's very different. A
It is
basic,
not
and this is what
E.
I've said. It's a basic
It is
of
not
English.
E.
It's a C. You need a C grade or
A C is
yes.
not an E.
But
C
that's a
is not
GCSE,
D,
not
is
at
not
A
E.
level. That is a GCSE. It's a much
University.
no. The C that you need in GCSEs to get into university is at GCSE. You don't need a C at A level English. It's when you're 16. Did you pass your GCSEs English and maths?
When you're doing your TOEFLs,
They don't then look at.
when you're doing
they
your
don't look
TOEFLs,
at.
when you're doing your TOEFL exams, for example, you want to transfer into UK university
US.
or the IELTS, right? It's a minimum. There's a minimum, and that minimum is
If
not
you
going to
don't
be
pass
an E.
that exam, are you going to be
You
So
cannot.
accepted?
if you don't pass that
There's a
exam, you
minimum.
would not even be able to.
You won't
It's
even
part
be
of your
considered.
application. It's part of your
Yes.
application,
Yes.
and there's certain marks that they ask that you attain in order to make the transition. And I mean that is clear.
But the level that they're testing you on is to ensure that you have basic proficiency, to ensure that your maths and English is basic. The level you're being tested on at KCSE for maths and English is quite advanced. So what you should do is test people at a lower grade for the basics. If they pass that, they should be able to get into a university of their choice to study a subject which they ace and they excel at.
University education is something that people desire, and it has been should we say the point at which probably achievement, academic or otherwise, is pegged in this country. But the truth of the matter is this: not everyone wants to go to university, number one. Whether they pass or they don't. And not everyone can go to university.
Yep.
Do you know what percentage of the world actually holds a university degree?
No, what is
There was a study that was done by Harvard and the Asian Development Bank. 6.7%.
of the world population.
World.
As a basic undergraduate
I understand
university.
not
Degree
everybody
one,
wants
not 2, 3, 4.
Not everybody wants a degree. Not everybody gets into the university. What I want to take away is this barrier for somebody who does want to go to university to study a specific subject, for instance, English literature, but because perhaps their geography, maths, electrical engineering, and the other things, computer science, was not good, they can't get into university.
What do they
Yet
want?
they aced it in
Clearly-
literature.
What do they want? Do they want
How you can't see that there is something
what do
fundamentally
they
wrong
want
with this
a
system?
degree,
I don't
or
know.
do they want to advance their career? To
Well,
advance
usually
their
a
career using
degree,
literature?
no,
Degree
no,
is-
it's not.
degree is
it's,
now
it's
So
a
the degree-
structured way
so the degree
of
is the-
learning
is the
more
one all and
and
all.
tapping into the universal knowledge or pool of knowledge that there is. A degree is a structured way of learning, because you could tell somebody just go and read the books. You don't need to go into
You
university.
know, we do have a new education system that has been put in place. Huh?
And this new curriculum, which is actually
Still
what I was
breaks
going to
down
come out to,
into-
this the new curriculum, which is what is being introduced. Obviously, is going to take it's going to roll out a lot more later. Has actually come in to take a lot of these elements into consideration. Okay. And obviously they saw that there was something wrong with the system in terms of what was being churned out, which was why there was the introduction of this new system. And it then gives people a more, or learners now as they call them, a more holistic approach to what you study. To say now that we are going to then test you, as it were, on things that you are more interested in as an individual. So you then are able to branch out, which I think is better. Then be tested on the things that you are interested in and see then if you're leaning, then if you're actually good at where your leaning is. So then you're now able to combine interest with expertise, and those are the kind of people that then they want to put out into society, as opposed to testing you on something that you may not be good at, or asking you to be good at something that you don't test well at,
or you're not interested in,
or that you're not interested in.
So
I think that is why this new curriculum has come in, because all of these things are have integrity as arguments. They all do.
And this
because you can say here, we're coming into a system whereby I'm going to be tested on something that I'm not interested in.
This will happen in the 10th year of your schooling. So in the previous years, you'll actually learn everything.
And
then you
also
get to a
find,
point now
and
you start
interestingly
specializing.
enough, when you do get into university, and if you look at a lot of different kind of curriculum, in the first year, you're not specializing in anything anyway.
That's American, where you do.
It's the American university system, for example. In the first year where you're doing, the
French have something similar.
The French also. So now what you're doing is that you're basically taking general courses and you're basically finding your path in terms of what you want. Even if you have decided that, look, I want to study medicine, or if I want to study French, or if I want to study, mechanical engineering, your first year is really an exploration year to say, okay, I have the grades that I needed. They've gotten me the average, but where would my leaning go? And then you declare a major, as it were, after that.
Tell me, with this new competency-based curriculum, does it change how the selection of university happens? Did I hear you say something like at year 10, you then narrow down on the few subjects that you actually enjoy?
Yes.
Which is what happens at GCSE. So they are revising the system.
They are revising.
Having realized there's something fundamentally wrong.
Exactly. They've seen that there's a problem.
Right.
Because you had a lot of students coming out having crammed information and not learned anything. Because then later you would see that you have students, for example, who will not do something basic like be able to present,
so
like being able to speak in public.
At year 10, you narrow down from 10 subjects to, say, 3 subjects, like you would into an A-level.
Not necessarily, but then you now go into a particular leaning, whether it's towards the arts, or whether it's towards the sciences, or whether it's towards life skills, things like that.
Which is then what you will be tested upon when getting into university.
Yes.
That will be the measure, absolutely. That's how it should be.
It's 10 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4.
8 minutes to 7. Good morning. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Let's open up the phone line 0719-012-600. You can also post your comments on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and Twitter at Spice FM KE. Our hashtag is the Situation Room. We're talking about the results that were released yesterday, KCSE results for the Form 4 candidates. Of course, we know that 81.9%, let's say 82% of the students, a total of 541,000 of them, did not get the minimum requirement to enter into university. So what happens to them? Where do they go to? We have the TVETs, of course. We've got also the universities.
What are TVETs? Can you expound a little bit and what opportunities they give these individuals that don't get into university?
You see all the colleges that you see in town, all of them that are not called university, they're called college, where you get a certificate or a diploma. Those are TVETs, technical and vocational education and training. We've got over 1,000 of them that are registered by there's a body called the TVET Authority. That
TA?
Yeah, not TVET A, TVETA.
Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
Not Transition Authority, right? So the TVET Authority, of course, it's the one that does the licensing of these colleges. All the colleges that you think of that offer certificate courses to diploma to higher diploma courses, all right? And this is where people will end up going. So if you're interested a lot in communication, you look for communication colleges. If you're interested in carpentry, you look for carpentry college. You'll get.
But
you're
they
interested
don't
in design.
offer the same quality quality of education in terms of breadth and depth as a university would.
They offer more skill, actually. Yes, there's a lot of training, but it focuses a lot more on your technical understanding, and your
As
technical
opposed
capacity.
to theory
As
and,
opposed
and
to
sort
theory
of the
and all.
philosophy behind things.
Yes.
So as an artist, if I wanted to learn the history of art and classics and the theory behind it, as well as grow my skill, I wouldn't have this opportunity because I scored an E in maths
You
or a
might
D
have
in
that
maths.
opportunity. It may not go into the depth. It may actually give you that introduction. So it doesn't mean
No,
that
no,
the
I don't want the
diploma-
introduction.
It doesn't mean
go
that
into the
it
depth.
doesn't mean that the
The
diploma.
depth,
It doesn't mean that the
But
diploma
every
course.
course
of a
begins
degree.
with an introduction
Yes.
at
Yes.
that level.
It
Sure.
doesn't mean
Yes.
that a diploma course, you're only going, for example, to day one, you just be given paint and canvas and told,
No, you
start
can't
painting.
compare a diploma with, say, a
You will
degree, a university degree.
No one is comparing.
No one is comparing.
But I think-
It's just that you have to understand, or at least want to understand, that when you are offering a course at what we call a college level, and we're saying it's a certificate, it is clearly not a degree. If you say we're offering a diploma, again, it's clearly not a degree.
Okay,
And it's
that
not
So
a
the
we can
depths,
agree
certificate
so
on.
the
either.
depths to which you will go cannot be the same
The
as
same.
that at
Now,
the degree
what if
level.
I have a burning passion as an artist to go into depths? I want to learn about the Monets and the Renaissance and understand the history of art and what it's done to us as a society and culture, as well as, draw and have the skill, or if it's fine art, I'm going to whatever expression of art it is. What if I want that? But because my mean grade was brought down by subjects like physics, of which I will never have any use for as far as I'm concerned, I cannot get into university. I cannot be in an institution that provides me with a framework and a structured way to learn what I want. This is my point.
Actually,
and I think
there is nothing like a useless subject, and that you won't ever need it. It's not true.
there's a lot of
It's
useless
absolutely
subjects.
not
I have
true.
never used Pythagoras' theorem in my life.
Oh, so you
I
think?
tell you, I would rather they taught me how to pay my taxes,
so you
how to
think.
deal with my emotions and so forth, as opposed to Pythagoras' theorem. I have never used it. I have never. I don't think I ever will. Unless I was going into rocket launching or science or engineering, I don't need it, and I never needed it.
That's what everybody argues.
Similarly, mitochondria.
And
What is the purpose of knowing what's inside RNA and DNA and so on? How did that help you to know the
Helps you with
CGTA
your
You know,
and
in
so on?
geography,
No, you don't need
many
to
years
know
ago,
it.
I studied the St. Lawrence
Plate
Seaway.
tectonics. Who
It's
needs
in
to know
America.
that?
I studied something about hieroglyphics in
Egypt.
That's
I've never
cultural.
written hieroglyphics.
No, but
Okay?
that's cultural. You
But
want
he has
to
no interest
understand
in it.
other people's culture. It actually aids your thinking in terms of having a wider perspective.
then you've answered
when you're
your own
interpreting-
question.
Not Pythagoras' theorem. That
has-
does not aid my thinking
That
in
you
any way,
repeat
shape,
it so
or form.
often means you caught it.
No, I mean, I remember it. I
Yeah,
think.
There you
Precisely.
go.
A
It
squared
added to your
plus
There you
store
go.
of knowledge.
B squared
It
equals
added to your
C
soul of
squared,
knowledge.
It
something
can
like
Even the
even be
mitochondria
equal
that you're
to
talking
Z
about.
squared.
No,
It doesn't really
there's
matter.
some things up to a certain level. Say when you're 16, yes, you should have the basic understanding of most things.
That's
most
the thing.
subjects.
There it is. And I think this is what the system is looking at. A basic understanding across board. And I think it is necessary because then I think we will be faced, okay, maybe the nitty gritty in terms of a formula, all right, who cares? But I mean, generally, for you to have an understanding then of even not just how youth do things, because we're living in a world where you're going to have to interact, then also a basic understanding of how others who may be in a specialized field do things too. And for the purposes of things as basic as conversation, it then allows you to have a broader mind view of how these things operate. And that, I think, is what they're looking at now. One of the factors that they use is testing, which doesn't really show you how much an individual has comprehended.
Actually, it does.
And I don't think it doesn't.
Actually,
it doesn't.
it does.
It doesn't capture the breadth and length of your knowledge. Unfortunately,
actually,
it doesn't.
no education
doesn't.
system
testing-
does.
It doesn't.
A
CT.
that's- for this right now, a test or an exam does not capture the breadth and length of your knowledge or of your comprehension, of your understanding, unfortunately. Because on that particular day when I was taking the test or the exam, I may have had a bad day. There may have been other things that were clogging my mind or my memory. It is very possible that I had all the information or that I understood it, but then I had brain freeze. And unfortunately, that's what they're going to take. And this is what I'm saying. A test or an exam does not capture all of that completely, unfortunately. And now what we are saying is that a system then that allows you to take in more than just the exam as an indicator of your success is
You
absolutely
bring something
necessary.
in altogether, which is continuous assessment or coursework, whatever we want to call it, as opposed to these end year or end of the 4-year exams that you do, and one day can determine the rest of your life. So if
Which
you're
is
having
what
a
we
bad
have
day,
now.
which is what we have, and that's a slightly different topic in terms of how the curriculum is arranged. But even then, even if we were to change changed that and it was coursework, underpinned by coursework and continuous assessment as opposed to this one-day exam, we still should not get to a point where your average is taken as the ability of your performance, and that's what determines whether you can get into university or not.
This education system that you seem hell-bent on tearing down was actually created at a time that, what it was needed for was precisely what it was designed for. We needed a certain cadre or a certain caliber of individuals to fill certain gaps within the economy. So they were trained with that in mind. That it outlived its usefulness, generally speaking, yes, you could argue. That you could argue also that perhaps in that process, the learner was never given an opportunity to understand certain things about the courses that they were being afforded. One, there were too many in a class. There were people who were tasked with that duty of ensuring that students actually understood the length and the breadth of what these subjects would take them to, and they didn't. But that education system served the purpose for which it was set.
It's a situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Coming up to 7 o'clock. Our phone lines are still open. 0719 012 600.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right. Unfortunately, a couple of accidents on Mombasa Road today were interesting enough. We had individuals crossing the road, and the fact that there's no traffic on Mombasa Road today, two people have been knocked, unfortunately, right now, and that is people are trying to sort that out. We're getting to the week where there will be no traffic whatsoever, and I think people have assumed that it has started already. Not much traffic on Mombasa Road. It's 6 days to Christmas. There's traffic a little bit at the railways roundabout, right in the middle of the CBD, spilling over into Uhuru Highway, and that's coming off of Mombasa Road, of course, and coming out of Upper Hill as well as Langata Road. Let's see what that looks like later, but for now, not so bad. Getting off of Waiyaki Way, coming into the city at the University of Nairobi roundabout, as it were, it's not so bad. A little bit of a hold up there, but that will clear up shortly. Coming off of Langata Road and coming off from Gong Road, joining with Bagavi Way at the City Mortuary roundabout. Also right now, a bit of traffic, but that'll stave off as you get down into the city. Coming off of Thika Road as well, not so bad right now. Getting onto the Pangani underpass, it's good in terms of traffic today. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Nyeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2 minutes past 7 o'clock. Let's go to the phone line. 0719 012 600. Calling in from Nairobi, this is Koi. Good morning, Koi.
Morning. How are you?
Good
We're
morning.
well, thank you.
Yes. I wanted to weigh in on the conversation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just a clarification, because I'm an 844. I've gone through the 844 system. In Jerry, actually, there is what is called a cluster. Mm-hmm. And what that means is, even if you've done like 8 or 10 subjects, there are those that are compulsory subjects. Mm-hmm. You can take up additional ones, but they may not necessarily count. But when you're going into university, mm-hmm. they pick the grades of your cluster. So, for example, they will say, if you want to do humanities, you need to have at least a certain score in languages, either mm-hmm. English or Swahili, mm-hmm. and 2 or 3 others. So they'll pick the mean of your cluster. So, you may have failed in physics, but it will not be counted in your cluster when you're going into university. So, in a sense, it will not necessarily take all the mean of the 10, but what you have selected, it will take your cluster. So, ideally, it will take math, a language, and maybe something else, depending on if you're going for sciences. You have to have biology and chemistry if you want to do medicine. But if you're picking something to do with the arts, they will not include biology or chemistry, they'll include a humanity.
So in this C plus requirement, is that not a mean of all the subjects that you took? With the results we're looking at today and saying that 81% of the people did not make the cut, are we doing that with a cluster system, which I'm yet to understand fully, so do excuse me if there's any sort of gaps in my knowledge there.
Yes, so the C is the minimum for you to be considered to go to university. But for what you want to take,
so thereafter, they then look at your grades
course that you want to
and
take.
so on. But do you not find this C in and of itself limiting in the first instance? That cutoff criteria is unnecessarily limiting. We could be losing out on people who could really contribute to society as artists, as mathematician or mathematical geniuses, but because the grade, this mean grade, the C plus, that is the basic requirement, was brought down because of their lack of proficiency in English literature, biology, and so forth, we actually miss out on mathematical geniuses. Do you not see that situation occurring?
I'm of the view that you don't have to go to university to contribute to the economy or to the fine arts of this world. You don't necessarily have to. You can contribute at different spaces. And, for example, the TVET that has been talked about, which is actually technical and vocational.
What if you want to go to university?
Well, it doesn't stop you from going from university, by the way. You will still go if you want. And even now, anyone who wants to go to university, have a diploma, they still can go to university.
So it's a longer route.
It may be a longer route,
but it'll still take you there.
It does not stop you from going. And in fact, some of the really good, if I could say, if you look at the area of technical courses, some of the really good people who've come out of the system actually come from TVET and not from the university, because the university gives a lot more theory than practical. So if you're looking for a handyman, for example, in a company, you would perhaps rather go to the polytechnic and get the person, and sometimes that person can then further their education if they want to on the theory side of it.
Thank you very much,
Okay,
Corey.
thanks for your insights. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay, thanks.
Moshimoa Grace, good morning.
Good morning. How are you people?
Good morning.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
You've made CT happy.
Looking forward to seeing you four in the year 2020.
Same
We look
here.
forward to hearing from you as well.
Well, I will see you physically 2020.
Oh,
Fantastic.
good. Come into the studio, please.
Yeah, welcome one of these days. But in the year 2020, let me relax now. This holiday.
You have 1 week thereabouts, 9 days,
Yeah,
10 days.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you are talking about the cut-off points, yeah?
Yes.
Let me make a statement this way, that this world was made for all of us. And we need to give room to everybody to exercise their talent, whatever it is, or their passion. This issue of glorifying the university education is kind of dropping down on people who may not necessarily be geniuses, but they have talents which, when they are given room, they do wonders.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that it may take a longer route. For instance, what the last lady had said, that if you start with a diploma and end up in a university later, it is okay.
You'll still end up there.
Students, these young people here, they need to be told that you do your best, establish your passion, pursue your passion, and you'll be great like everybody else.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like we over glorified the
university, exactly. And we talk about the people who have attained this minimum entry as those who have passed. And then, of course, it implies that everybody else has failed. And we cannot be talking
Not
that
necessarily.
82% of our country has failed. Of course, they haven't failed.
You see, a lot of we've seen people who are A material,
Yep.
like in my youth.
Yeah.
There were people who are A material. Some of us were in C or B plus or something.
Mm.
But once you graduate, once you remove the graduation gown,
Yep.
the real life test now begins.
True.
And you realize how people become successful by sheer effort, others by, by whatever.
Creativity, tenacity, things that the exams wouldn't have otherwise
Yeah. So we need to
examined.
tell our young people, do your best at whatever stage, but make sure that you establish what your talent is, your passion is,
And you pursue that.
and you move on. In any case, all what we are looking for is an opportunity to navigate yourself
Yep.
in life, be able to earn a living. And there is no difference really whether we normally say in our place, money has no color.
Indeed.
There's no color. If I sing and I get money, well and
Well
good.
and
If
good.
you work in a bank, you bring money, then it is well and good.
Yep.
So long as I'm happy in what I'm doing, I'm pursuing my passion, and my life is comfortable. So
Yeah, true. Thank you very much, Grace, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
I will come, definitely.
Asante
Thank you,
sana.
Grace. Happy Christmas.
Sami in Magarini, Malindi, good morning.
Yes, good morning, please.
Good
Good
morning.
morning,
Morning.
Sammy.
Yes, I'm Sammy, of course. Actually, I want to contribute to this subject. It's very interesting because I'm a living example that I never went to high school. I also skipped standard 4. I went to standard 6. After dropping out in 1974, then up to 1979, I went to standard 6. And then in 1980, I sat for my KCPE and I got 19 points. But I did amazingly with English. I got a B+. Now, after that, I stayed until 2005. I applied for advanced business English from Manchester, and I did that overwhelmingly. I had a diploma, and then also I went to a World English Institute, America. I got an intermediate English diploma and also an advanced English diploma. And now I'm doing online tuition through Kenya Plex. It's a wonderful. I sometimes even I do tuition to secondary students, and also I go to since I have a command in also in spoken English. So I
Oopsie.
better it should be out of question. One has to pursue what they are actually better in doing, than giving us a burden of doing all collectively all of this. And you see this question of Kenyan universities taking a long time. Imagine a diploma with the overseas, you just do it within 9 months and you are finished with it. But here they drag on because of money. They want to
the
pay a lot of
UK
money.
specifically.
The UK. But here a diploma takes about 4 years. When in the other countries it takes about 9 months. Yeah.
2 to 3 years.
So I think yes, all this business we should get rid of and make people do whatever they do best. We want, even if it's one subject, engineering and whatever, rather than taking the whole lot.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think yes, it's good anyway.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
Sami.
day, Sammy.
very
Thank
much,
you.
Sammy.
Actually, if you look at some of the courses that were offered at the Polytechnic, some of the like the engineering courses, they did go beyond 3 years because of the practicum.
Because of the practicum, yes.
The practicum, some practicum would be 6 months. And at every stage, you'd have a practicum. So by the time you're through in your third year, you've had something like 3 practicums. So you actually are very knowledgeable. But something I wanted to say about the TVET. What is not known to many Kenyans is that a very large number of people who are now college professors, university professors, many of them began their education as primary school teachers. Not degree holders. No. Just primary school teachers, P1, P2.
Yep.
They then went for a diploma. And part of the reason why this was possible was because there was long distance learning that was later offered by universities. They got their degrees, their masters, their PhD, and so forth. It may appear to take long, but someone who is genuinely interested in pursuing a course, like the art genius that Nyeri has been referring to, and the brother who is the
And mathematical genius.
if they want to pursue a particular course, you can.
It's
And
your
you
why-
will actually end up where you want
My
to go.
point
passion
is,
is
why
influence.
create these barriers? It's unnecessary, and the government has, of course, realized this. They've changed the whole system.
I don't think
I
they
think-
created barriers. The
They do
intention was not to
create-
create a barrier.
It wasn't- it's an unintended
Jerry,
consequence,
the
but
system,
it's there.
the system hasn't been changed per se. So yes, you're going to be able to specialize, of course, in your areas of interest by taking, going to a college where you take courses, a high school where you take courses that lean towards that, right? But there's still going to be the requirements for entry to university.
Which is going, but what it's going to mean is you're not going to be tested on subjects that you're weak at. Those will be left behind, not at such a high
you
level.
will be.
You will
Not at
still
such
be
a high
tested.
level.
You will be tested.
There still will be compulsory subjects.
Yes, they're compulsory subjects,
If
but at
you're
a
weak
lower,
in those compulsory subjects?
lower level.
No.
This is-
If
I
you're
want to
doing
go back to the
English,
GCSE
English will
system.
still be taken.
No. If
You're saying no
I'm
to what?
comparing
To
this with the
English will not be
GCSE
taken.
system, right?
No, we're talking about the Kenyan system.
Yes, but
Jerry.
this competency-based curriculum that's coming up, you told me at grade 10 or year 10, you can actually, or standard 10, you can actually pick your subjects.
You do.
Even
Which
now,
is exactly-
Even now you
hold
can.
on, which is exactly-
these students who sat their exams. Remember, I told you about electricity. Not everybody has been.
So you
tested
can
on electricity.
specialize. You,
Because
you
you're
can pick more.
You're
Now,
still
no.
choosing,
Let's
you're
go
still
back
selecting. Let me just tell you about the current one. Then we go into the.
I've understood the current one. I don't have a problem with that. I'm
can
talking
still-
about the
You can
competency-based
still,
one.
even the competency based, you can still select. Even currently, you can still select. You actually still have those compulsory. There's a cluster of compulsories.
Yes.
Math, English, languages are compulsory. Then you look at sciences. There are those that are compulsory. You must take at least one science. So you'll choose. Do you want to take physics, chemistry, or biology? Then you also look at now the others: history, geography, and the rest. So if you're taking one of those, geography and all, you've taken a humanities course. Then also there's the power mechanics and the electricity and aviation. If your school is offering aviation and you're to be tested, you still select clusters of subjects
do
that you
choose.
are
At
strong
every stage.
at.
What I want to understand better, because the competency-based curriculum seems and sounds very much like the GCSE curriculum, whereby at 16 you can drop everything and you only have to choose 3 subjects that you want. Nothing is compulsory, not maths, not English, nothing. That is already tested in that you should have the basics by 16.
No, we sorry, we don't.
So
have
what
that.
I'm asking,
No,
with
no,
a
no, no.
competency-based
No, we don't.
curriculum, at 16, which is around grade 10, year 10, are you able to drop everything? Because I think at 16 you should have the
16 what?
basics.
Age 16?
Age 16. Age 16. You should have the basics. I have not touched any English since age 16 in terms of academic work. I have not touched, let's say, geography since age 16. But I have a decent enough understanding. In fact, I think my English is okay considering I stopped studying it at age 16. But for you to be tested on something at the same level as your choice subjects, and that something is one of your weak points, and it's going to be used to decide whether or not you get into university, I think there's something unfair about it. I know you've countered that and saying, well, there is still a way. Why should this person be disadvantaged in having to take another route to get into university, whereas what you can do is change the system so it works for everybody? And don't conflate my argument with me placing any emphasis on a university education. In fact, my school of thought is that a university degree will be obsolete in years to come, and you don't need one to be successful. There's prestige around it, and yes, it's a good route for people that age because they still perhaps haven't figured out what to do in life in terms of they can't work, and it's good for them to be in a controlled environment. But if somebody does want to go to university, this is my argument. These are unnecessary barriers. The fact that I'm going to be tested on my mathematical ability at such a high level, test them at a lower level, which is what we need for basic survival. There's people who haven't touched maths from, let's say, the GCSE system since age 16, and they're coping okay. That is the basic. But once they choose their 3 subjects at A level, let's say they chose art, history of art, and psychology, they then excel in that field, but they have the basic maths. Test the basics at a lower level, not at the same level
When
as
you
your
did
choice
your A
subjects.
levels, what were your 3 subjects?
I studied economics, history, and literature.
All right. Well, those are the only 3 that you were taught.
At A levels. Yes, that's true.
Do you not believe me?
There was general paper.
Listen. So
That's what actually
There
happened.
was general paper.
and what is general paper?
General paper was actually essentially general knowledge. It has a name for it in standard 8 exams, where you study social
Current
matters,
affairs.
current affairs,
GSC.
politics. GSC, that's what it's called. Yes, that's what we studied.
And was it tested in the same way as the
Yes, it was tested.
So you did 4 A levels.
Yes, you can call it 4. It wasn't
Okay.
4, but you can call it 4. The 3 were principal subjects. The other one wasn't. Yes.
The general
subject, yes, but it was important. I could have chosen a fourth subject. What Eric is asking. If I felt I wanted to study another subject, I could have. But the minimum I was allowed to take was 3 minimum.
And these selections, do they come out of an interest that you inherently have, or something that you want to pursue in the future for your career?
What's the difference?
Well, that's what I mean.
Both.
It could be both.
Or the fact that you scored well in your GCSEs and you got good grades and you think you're good at that. Yeah. And don't get me wrong,
because
this system does have its...
Did you take these courses because you wanted to be a teacher later? Or did you take these courses because you generally wanted to know, for example, what is history? Whether it's a history of African history, European history, Eastern civilizations history.
In
or you saw that, okay, I've done this before and I've done well, so let me just do it again. Because, you see, there are many reasons why you would have made the selection.
I was also very good in history.
And did you have a natural inclination towards these subjects?
I did.
Right.
I had a natural inclination.
The two are synonymous,
But that's why I asked the question, what was the difference? You see, the at A level, remember when I'm going to, let me move further back. I said one of the pitfalls of the system that we had was there were teachers who were supposed to guide students in curriculum matters. They didn't. And if they spent time on it, it amounted to next to nothing. That is where the problem was, because we had not studied economics in O level, but I wanted to choose it, and I was happy I did, because it opened my mind to things that I had never known or understood.
Right.
The point is this: at that age, I was 17. What that guaranteed was, I was actually doing something that I liked, but the system could choose that for you, because if you sat for your O levels and it was clear that you did well in the science subjects, now this is where the tricky bit came in.
Yep.
You needed to have chosen your A level subjects in the sciences. Then you'd automatically be taken.
Yep.
If you chose sciences and didn't do well in the sciences, then you'd have a bit of a problem.
Because you would fail, essentially.
No, even if you didn't fail. No, it's not failing.
You'd end up with...
and you hadn't chosen.
So
now is when you now needed to actually go and make the extra effort of ensuring that the grades that you did well in were considered in taking to your, because the system considered what you chose. It's not that you wouldn't go to A level, you would, but it would be a tedious process. Yes, but you ended up going. Now, when I say qualified, it didn't mean you didn't fail. No. There was a minimum that you needed to get. If you got distinction in the subject, it was easy to get a place.
Yeah.
If you got a higher credit, but the credit was a point, it was 0.3, 4, and so forth. If you got a lower credit, it was more difficult. Point is, there is no time in the history of education that minimum requirements have not existed. They have always existed, and they always will. They can be tweaked and called whatever you want,
grades.
But they are always there. They may not be the same form, same shape, but they are always there. There's always a minimum requirement.
The conversation continues on our social media platforms. Spice FM KE on Facebook, at Spice FM KE is our Twitter handle, and the hashtag is The Situation Room. It's 22 minutes past 7.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
In the room this morning, we have C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, Nduoko. My name is Eric Latif. So what's happened in America this morning?
Well, yes, it was this morning at about 3 o'clock, and we found out that the motion for impeachment carried through, and President Donald Trump has been impeached. Now, a lot of people feel that, or rather think that because of his impeachment, he no longer is president, and that is not the case. He has been impeached, which now means that a trial will come through as a result of that. The impeachment came with a vote from the Democratic-led House of Representatives, and we're looking at those numbers at 230 to 197, of course, with the Democrats having the majority in the House of Representatives. Now, what this means essentially is that he will then go to trial in a Senate, in the Senate, which in this case is Republican led. The Republicans carry the majority. Now, if you look at what they were looking at previously, and they said on these grounds we would then seek for impeachment, and on the grounds that they sought were abuse of power of the presidency for his own personal benefit, and the blocking of Congress investigations into this alleged wrongdoing. So now there were votes of 230 to 197 on the abuse of power, and then there were votes of 229 to 198 on the blocking of Congress investigations. So they found issue with the man, and they said, based on this, we then now will impeach him, and that vote carried through at about 3:45 this morning. Now, just after that, what is popularly known as the Merry Christmas rally is when President Trump spoke, and he said, look, we've been impeached. Yesterday there were prayers. I think he asked the entire nation to pray for him because he saw that what was being done was an attack. And of course, the impeachment was imminent at this point, but it actually did come through. And what he then asked for were prayers. But today we see a totally different thing. Now, come January or early next year is what it is slated for, there will be a trial. If he is convicted, he will cease to be president of the United States. If he is acquitted, he carries on. But the thing is, he will still bear the scarlet letter of impeachment. Now, he's the third president in the history of the 46. He is the 46th, and he would be the third one to have ever been impeached by the House of Representatives, which is who carries the day in terms of this motion. Right now, it's mostly symbolic, fortunately or unfortunately, whichever side you sit on. But it only means that, yes, we've said he must basically said that he must go to trial, and he will, based on this. But just looking at his outward or his appearance yesterday and what he seemed to say, or rather early this morning, is that he seems or would like to give off the appearance that he's not fazed. And he says that this is a direct attack on him. And from what I see it as is a smoke signal that is coming from who he shares governance with, as opposed to where his popularity lies. Because the people of America still want this man in. And I see that he will be acquitted and he's going to remain president of the United States. And he's probably going to run and be he will still run and be a powerful contender in 2020 and will probably win another term in office.
But do remember that if you consider each of the cases, for instance, is he called Andrew Johnson? What was he impeached for? What had he done?
What was the case against him?
That's what I want to know, because there were three. The first one was Andrew Johnson. What was he impeached for?
I don't know.
Okay, what was Clinton impeached for? The point I'm getting at here is that
he did not have sexual relations.
That was why
the issues were different.
Right. I mean, you have the whole Watergate, of course, with
so
Nixon.
Whether someone, and Nixon had Watergate,
Yes.
whether someone ends up being popular or extremely popular, more popular than he was before, is actually determined by what the case of impeachment was against him. Remember, Trump is being accused of something fairly nefarious. That he was acting in something which is against the interests of the United States. And his job as the chief of that particular country is to protect this interest.
Right, and so he was using his position, according to them, using his position for his personal benefit. That was the first one.
Yes.
The next article then was... that
he was
because
trying to
Congress
block
wanted to
Congress
wanted to investigate this now abuse of power, and then he wanted to block Congress from said investigation.
Yes.
Now, in this is not something that Americans, if you just think about the whole psyche of Americans when it comes to their statehood and nationhood, this is something that tinkers quite heavily on that belief itself.
Or maybe not.
Well, look, I mean, if you want to look at it from where the Democrats are coming from, yes, it is abuse of power. When we've put you in a position of power
the Democrats
to
would look at it
protect
this way,
the people.
right?
Of course, they would, to protect the people of the United States, and that very thing that we have given to you to expend, you are abusing.
I think if we
on that alone, they wanted to get rid of him, or they want to get rid of him.
The Democrats would look at it this way, because this is their route. This is the one weapon that they've tried all manner of weapons. They've actually landed on one that they can use to get to the stage where they've gotten, and that's fine by them. Looking at what CT is saying, that the seriousness of the weight that you carry on your shoulder, the weight of your monkey is actually dependent on the kind of accusation that you have. I think it just depends on whether the people agree on with that leadership or not. The leadership that has actually impeached him. If the people come back and elect Trump, then it means that the people really, really do not believe that he did anything wrong.
Well,
Well, maybe
unfortunately,
they
the
do,
people
but they don't care.
Yeah, or they do.
but
They
it
look
is-
at it and they're
which
like,
is
oh,
what's
yeah,
happening.
but he was doing it for us.
Look,
Yeah, but in this
okay.
case, they don't have a say in his impeachment. It's not the people who are
Okay.
voting.
We're saying if he,
All
if
right.
he's
And
It's
Jackson-
representatives of the people.
The
though.
problem with him was he seemed to have contravened something very, very basic, and that was the Tenure of Office Act. He had a Secretary of State whom he didn't think was suitable, and he removed him. Now, it was on that basis he went against this act. Okay? Clinton, sexual impropriety. That's at the heart of it.
Nixon, corruption.
Corruption, and then Watergate was brought in.
Yep.
Yes, the Watergate saga, which brought in all these issues, isn't it?
There's a
Right.
corruption and the attempted cover-ups and all, right?
Yes, exact. The cover up. Now, what Trump is being accused of currently boils down to that cover up. When you want to prevent Congress from investigating you, or at least if that is the accusation, you are trying to cover up. If they are saying that you are using your powers to influence another sovereign nation to sort of like perform acts that would seem to influence the going-ons in America, and then you seem to want to prevent it, cover up. See, I'm saying it is important not to ignore the reasons for the impeachment.
Absolutely. And you know, the thing is, I mean, we've talked about 3, but you know what? That's what I was talking about, the Scarlet Letter. Because whether he's acquitted or convicted, that Scarlet Letter will remain. And that's the thing. You always be remembered as a president that was impeached. It's a big deal.
I don't
True.
think
Who?
integrity
I'm
is
talking about, look at the people that have been
To
mentioned.
Trump?
Not to him, but if you look at it, it will always be, this was when you talk about the Clinton presidency, that's one of the things you remember.
But if you
when you talk
remember-
about the Johnson presidency, that's one of the things that you remember. When you talk about the Nixon presidency, with all the wonderful things that he did for the United States, you remember his impeachment.
Of course
I think
you do.
people cared those days in terms of integrity and sort of good reputation. I think that was important, but that's been thrown out of the window by Trump. I don't think he cares what people think, and he's created an atmosphere of that where, you know, being politically correct and being known as being full of integrity and so on, it's of no consequence, because what they've done is they've seen people who hold themselves together in public, like Obama, bring, you know, sort of hardship to their lives. So they don't care for that anymore. I think it's the equivalent of how Nairobi was quite happy with Sonko. You'd never have imagined that, say, 10, 15 years ago. You expect a man in a suit to be the leader of a county, to be a governor. But we've changed, or they've
Excuse
shifted.
me? Repeat that thing again?
There was a time it was unfathomable to picture somebody like Sonko being
Like
a
Sonko,
governor.
like being
Sonko
what
in
exactly?
terms of his demeanor, his characteristics, the way he dresses, the way his fashion sense is. We were very conventional in our thinking and conservative
How long ago
somewhat.
was that, do you
How long
suppose?
ago when did that change? I would say in the last 10 years it's become more acceptable.
Did it actually change?
I think we can all agree there has been a
20
shift.
years ago, we had councillors in Nairobi who became mayors, and if you looked at how they were and how the kind of demeanor that they carried, they portrayed same.
I think, generally speaking, for
If you
me,
think about
I
the
felt
mayors
the
that we've had in
acceptance-
Nairobi.
The acceptance came around 10 years ago. That level of flamboyancy would have ordinarily created an aversion intrinsically. But what's happened is over time, we've become accepting of it. And similarly with Trump or
I
under
think we've just
Trump's
gone
No.
leadership.
It's not the
Research.
flamboyance. It's what the person
says.
represents. Yes.
Well, he has obviously, in terms of politically, he does have populist, I was going to say ideologies, but populism isn't an ideology. So he does have populist leanings or a populist approach to leadership. But we can all agree with
Which
under
politician
Trump.
doesn't?
Well, a lot of leaders will actually follow ideologies as opposed to populism.
In which country?
You'll find, for instance, the president, he doesn't try and juxtapose the rich against the poor and lead by sort of creating fear in the people. He leads by trying to live up to people's aspirations or creating aspirations and creating a conducive environment for people to achieve those aspirations. So
And
it's
that
very
is
different.
and that isn't populism.
No,
Let's
populism.
take a look at
No,
traffic
populism
and then
is
we come
based
back and
on
talk
fear.
about populism and ideologies. 27 minutes to 8 o'clock. It's a situation with Kenya's biggest conversation. Of course, we are discussing the voting by the U.S. House of
Impeachment
Representatives
of Trump.
to impeach their president on 2 counts. Let's take a look at the traffic.
Everything nice, everything nice.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Right, Mombasa Road is clear all the way to Nyayo Stadium, Bunyala Road, Haile Selassie Avenue at this time. Of course, the questions are, what is going on? Well, we have fewer people on the roads, and that means that traffic is not a problem. Limuru Road, there's no traffic whatsoever. That might change later, though. And also realizing that there is construction happening on the further end of Wayaki Way, so that affects people who are leaving the city. It's not so bad wherever you look right now. Let's take a look at Mombasa Road and what might be happening here. Nah, nothing much. Thika Road is at its worst right now, and the worst means that you get at a snail's pace as opposed to gridlock. So yeah, it's a holiday season, and it's a holiday season on the roads as well. Anything out of the ordinary being that there's no traffic, do let us know. The number is 0719012600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The nays are 197. Present is 1. Article 1 is adopted. The question is on adoption of Article 2. The question is on the adoption of Article 2. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Nancy Pelosi.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was, and then of course there you see that the impeachment carried the day. Now, I think it's interesting that we talked about previously. What does he represent, as opposed to what is he as the president? Now talking about Donald Trump, but I think he does represent largely the people who just this "Make America Great Again." Interestingly enough, I don't think it's something that he came up with. I think it's something that he picked from
sentiments from and wrote on. There was the anti-establishment sentiment,
absolutely,
when he came in, and you've seen it. It's the running trend or the running evolution in the 21st century with these far-right populist parties. You've seen that in the UK, and far-right, and as far as even racist parties having members of parliament. And that was actually political blowback from the sense that there is the establishment. And what was happening is individuals' lives were being affected adversely because the system was becoming so institutionalized that people weren't feeling the benefits, in that it was such an entrenched framework. Populism, of course, of which Donald Trump has been accused of course, is when you make policy for poor people or based on poor people's needs, as opposed to looking at long-term solutions. You see it with Sonko, with something like Sonko Rescue Team. It's very visible, and you juxtapose the poor against the elite or the rich in the country. And what you'll find is, as a result, you become very popular, and also your policies will be based on short-term initiatives to please and to win elections. It doesn't then mean
he creates the division.
You can reinforce, amplify the division in terms of people's minds and blame the rich almost for the problems, which is not necessarily the case. It could be an economic downturn due to global financial crisis. There's a number of different things.
Like what we see, for example, of Trump blatantly blaming all the immigrants who came in and took away American jobs. And then that we see with the erection of this wall along the Mexican border.
We don't have immigrants taking jobs in this country.
No. It's an example against what she was giving.
Actually, I think it's a terrible example. That's why I'm mentioning it.
Well, but still,
I think it's a very good example.
This
He's
was the thing
worked on
that
people's
he did.
fears.
He worked on people's insecurities
as opposed to aspirations.
At the time that he came in, even though it was coming off of Obama, you saw that unemployment in the US had actually risen. And he came and said, these are the people who are taking away your jobs. And he was referring to the immigrants. And he this is what he said to the American people, and they were able then to ride he was then able to ride on that. Then when he was able to appeal to people's sentiment, and he said, if we now curtail our immigration at the border by erecting this wall along the Mexican border, he spoke to people's psyche. Absolutely,
has that wall been
he
erected?
did.
Or he reflected people's sentiments.
Right.
Remember, people had become so politically correct that Americans were getting frustrated that they can't actually even air their views.
You can't
You couldn't
speak
speak out anymore.
You couldn't speak out anymore. So he came out, and people felt they finally had a voice.
So
because
what
they
you're
felt
saying
they were
is someone
losing
like
America.
the MP for Gatundu is the sort of person who would find a perfect place in such an environment, because the man does speak his mind, doesn't he? Even if it's adverse to very many people, it's still speaking his mind.
And you'd be surprised at the
That's
number of
what
people
many-
who
many
actually go
politicians
along
in
with
this
what he
country, if you
says,
look at
but
the
actually
trail.
don't have the balls, as it were, to open their mouths and say this. But this is the thing, as unpalatable as it sounds sometimes, and things that people may say, you would be surprised at the number of people they actually represent with these sentiments. And that's just a fact of human nature that cannot be ignored. Yes, just this morning, I think the speech ended about an hour and a half ago, but at the Merry Christmas rally, what was Trump saying this morning? He was basically saying, look, he counted a list, and he said, these are the things that we've been able to do over the last 4 years. And this impeachment is trying to impede our progress. And again, he was appealing to the sentiments of people who are going to put him back in office in 2020. I mean, here he's going to trial in early next year. He will go to trial. It's a Republican-based led Senate who is going to either acquit him or convict him.
You need a 2/3 majority.
That they
so I
do
don't see
need
him going anywhere.
I don't see him going anywhere either.
By the way,
he does need a 2/3
I
majority to
wouldn't
either
be so sure.
Well,
Because the first president of America who faced this sort of problem escaped that particular guillotine by one vote. One.
What was the balance in Senate at the time? Because I think at the moment you've got...
Was his party
in the House of Representatives, it's led by the Democrats.
It was,
the
but
Democrats.
it was a 35 to 19 vote. It fell by one vote, just one vote. Now, the other consequences of his actions was he removed a gentleman by the name of Stanton, who nobody knows or even heard of, and disappeared into history. He was then the Secretary of War, and replaced him with someone who is in our annals of history called Ulysses S. Grant, known if you've read American history. So, some of these decisions, we have history to support us here. Yes, he may very well not be impeached because he has a majority.
Been impeached.
No. The effect of that impeachment as being removed from office.
He may not be convicted and then removed, right?
It may be so. But if I were you, I'd have stuck with that point of the scarlet letter of this impeachment sticking with him, because
I don't think he cares.
the outcome,
And does it really matter?
it does.
What does it matter if you
It does.
still come back and you actually get
It
a
does.
second term with
No,
an
no,
overwhelming
actually it
majority?
does.
This
America
time-
was still
moral
forever
police.
tainted.
This time,
Actually-
this time in 2020, I'm predicting it's actually going to be the popular vote plus the collegiate vote. So there's not going to be any
Why
question
don't
of,
we
oh,
then
you
look
got
at the
college
consequences of this? And you're actually getting into what I'm trying to
on
say.
Bill Clinton.
No. Bill Clinton, remember, the premise of my discussion was, what were they being impeached
No,
for?
the point is there was impeachment on Bill
Actually,
Clinton.
no. The point from which I'm discussing is not that they've been impeached. It's what they're being impeached for.
You can remember morality
Yes.
is a very big issue in
the
American
US.
politics.
It was a
Clearly
big issue.
not anymore. Trump has been groping women and being very
And
open
saying
about
the
it. And
the lewdest of
Absolutely.
things.
He's
Exactly.
been
No,
obnoxious.
at the point of
and
Clinton,
nobody
it was
cares.
a big. It was even now, even then, it was not a big thing. It's just that they
No.
pretend
It
to.
was a big thing.
It was
Integrity in office was a
Eh,
huge thing, and this is
even
what I'm
now when
talking about.
people
That
go
has
for office,
eroded.
it's a big
but that
issue.
has
They're looking
eroded
into your-
under
Okay,
Trump.
looking
so if
into
it
your
was a
past
big
in
thing,
terms of
how,
Eric, there
how
are
much
people
did his
who-
impact on Bill Clinton?
Eric, there are people who smoked pot when they were 2 years old, and they
And that
cannot
was
get
carried in 40
public
years
office.
later.
Yes.
Okay, well, 2 years.
2 years. Is that when you started?
What impact did that have on Bill Clinton? That was my question.
Well, the fact that he was being impeached for it in the first instance
That
tells
was
you
it.
something.
It was telling.
Trump has not been impeached
Okay,
for having
no,
done
no.
worse
No,
when
no.
it comes to women.
The question
and he
I'm
has
asking-
claimed,
and
you
the
know, there's
question-
women
and the
who
question
brought
I'm
about
asking
sexual
about
abuse
the tag
charges about
against him.
Forget
About
consensual
the
sex
tag.
with Monica Lewinsky.
About the tag, what impact did that tag have on Bill Clinton?
For
Did
somebody,
it diminish his capital in any
You know,
way?
Eric is determined
yes,
not
his social
to, not
capital
to
and
consider
his
what,
interior,
what I'm
sense-
premising my discussion
his
on.
sense of integrity, absolutely, it did have an impact. For somebody who
Unfortunately,
cares.
look at it. Unfortunately, yeah, because they do care. Unfortunately, when you think Bill Clinton, his name is almost synonymous with this case.
Yes.
In terms of anything else that he did do, which he did some fantastic things in terms of
Yes.
development for the United States
Lewinsky
and
comes to
the
mind.
world. The first thing when you look at the man is Lewinsky.
Has he been ostracized in that community?
some
That is
circles, absolutely.
That is being
America?
ostracized.
In some circles,
if a label
yes.
has stuck, yes.
The
But if
label
you
has
look at
stuck.
Trump, he doesn't care. So I don't think it's going to have the same impact. When you talk about the blot or the dot that will be left on his character and his presidency, he doesn't care. Neither do his supporters.
Yeah, it
Women
doesn't
have
matter.
come out accusing this man not of just being inappropriate sexually, but equivalent of rape and sexual harassment. Nobody cares. They still voted
You know,
for
And
him.
he's even
Yes.
gone on to say that, well, it's okay. That's what you expect from somebody who operates in such. I mean, come on. Some of the things he said, like CT said, I think obnoxious is the least you can use to explain what
There you
he's
go.
done.
So my point is, it doesn't really matter.
And I'm saying
To
it does.
him.
You
To
can
Trump.
carry
to
this
Trump.
I'm
Yes.
saying
Trump.
it
to
does.
Trump and his
You're
capital.
saying it does.
Yes, not
I-
to
actually,
Trump.
I-
Not
And
to
his-
Trump. I'm saying these things do matter especially if you're in a position of leadership such as the one that Trump is in. It matters. You may not think it does, but it does.
So
I think
what's-
it did matter,
what's-
but it
what's the
doesn't
likely
anymore.
impact?
On what specifically? Maybe I should explain
what you're
what
saying.
it is.
Wait,
I am
what
saying.
it
Well, it will go
matters.
down in history books.
How
for
does it
sure.
matter?
Yes, it will. Yeah, thank you. It will not only go down in history books, but he will even best case scenario for Trump, he'll be a 2-term presidency. Then he will not be. Yes, then he will not be a president anymore. Now thereafter,
You can't do more than 2 terms.
but that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carry on.
Thereafter,
Thereafter, somebody else will come into office. If you look at the trend of American politics, what has ushered in the Democrats or the Republicans usually has to do with what a previous president had done, or what the country perceived him to have done, or what he perceived to be wanting to take in the country to, which relates to what the state the country is in. Now, the Trump presidency is going to guarantee that the Democrats get into power.
If that was the case, and if your
then that would
argument-
happen next year.
Exactly. There's 2020. They have
there's an
opportunity
election
to
coming
do it.
up. If
But
the
they're
Trump-
not going
if
to
the
vote
Not
him out.
necessarily.
If the Trump
This
presidency
thing hasn't
and
been
this
lived
impeach-
out to its nth. No, not yet. This presidency
there's
hasn't
worse to
been
come.
seen. Why don't I give an example of our country so that we can understand this thing better? The first term of this presidency, one may have heard criticism of the government, but it's gotten loudest in the second term. And there will be reasons that will be given. I'm just talking about the volume of the noise. And the volume of the noise has been loudest in the president's backyard. That's criticism. Second term. In the first term, it wasn't there. Second term. I don't see it diminishing. It gets louder. I am merely talking about the volume of the criticism. It has come in the second term. And I'm saying, if I juxtapose any presidency with any other, by the time you get to a second term, people know you will not be president again. So things that they might otherwise have been afraid to utter.
They will utter.
Yes.
And they will do
And
that
So
with
the
vigor.
full flavor of the Trump presidency, we will see if he gets a second term. That's what I'm saying. And it will more or less guarantee that the Republicans will not see the presidency after Trump. That is what I'm saying.
If the economic environment and things like immigrants continue to grow, and you have exactly the same situation that got Trump into power, then I don't see why the Democrats would come in with their
What
conservative.
got Trump into power?
It was-
Again, this whole thing of, I think, make America great again, because people,
What is not spoken of?
nationalism, the brand
It's
of
statehood
nationalism, that's
nationalism,
going
and that's what it
around
was.
the world. It's a
It's
global
not just
trend.
Clinton also
nationalism.
helped.
No,
Clinton-
it just wasn't nationalism alone.
fascism.
Thank
even.
you. His competition was a woman, isn't
For
it?
starters.
For
yeah.
starters.
For starters,
yeah.
issue there. Then prior to him, there'd been a black man who had been a president. People need to recover from this. No one had anticipated that a black person was actually it was not within the realms of possibility at the time even
Even for
Obama
black
became
people.
president.
Yeah, even for black people. Yes, absolutely.
They the most. They
They're the
hadn't
most surprised.
anticipated.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're
shock
still
to the
recovering.
system. Cognitive dissonance.
Right.
okay,
When
yeah.
you see the president.
So why
can
did
actually
the
fly.
Republicans give him the ticket? How did he win the Republican ticket?
Who?
Trump. Who are we talking about?
I'm talking about Obama.
No, we're talking about Trump.
I'm talking about the
and how
consequences.
He
Trump-
was
how
given
Trump-
this because he was
how
loud,
Trump
outspoken,
won.
and he allayed their fears that we're going to be black overrun.
Again.
Yes.
Which
Or
they were
even worse, a
primed
woman.
for with the
No
Obama
one talks
presidency.
about
Even
it, but
worse,
it was
a woman.
It was an issue.
It was an issue.
And you will not. I'm guaranteed there'll be no woman or a black man. That's what I'm guaranteed.
I'm telling you that
And second, no. At the primaries,
Yeah,
at the
that's in
Republican
keeping with
primaries,
their right-wing
at the
views as
Republican
Republicans.
primaries, they had the option of picking another white man.
Yes, but he wasn't as outspoken about these very
and
issues.
he
Trump
wasn't
was.
so
Yes.
Trump
overtly
was saying,
racist.
this is the
and
thing that you talk
and
about.
fascist
strength.
like
Just
Trump.
like CT had said, you talk about the MP of Gatundu today and the things that he's able
Moses
that he
Kuria,
says.
yes.
Yes. Trump was saying things that people were thinking but didn't have the guts to say. He was giving the sentiment that a lot of people had. It was latent, or it was in their forethinking. They wanted to say it, but they didn't have the guts to say it. And he was saying it. And people said, yes, this guy, he's saying what we think. Put him in that seat. That's where we want him to be.
He resonated with the people.
Sorry?
He was resonating
Absolutely.
with the people. And that's what we're talking. 0719-012-600. We're talking about the impeachment of President Donald Trump by the U.S. House of Representatives. You can now call in and chime in on this conversation. 0719-012-600. Also post your comments on Facebook and Twitter at SpiceFMKE. 12 minutes to 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice it.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And the phone lines are open 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Would it matter if now that the impeachment has actually happened, and if he does not actually get convicted, would it really matter to Donald Trump?
To him, it wouldn't. Or at least he'll give the impression that it doesn't.
But for those that matter,
He would-
yes,
I
it
love
will
that.
matter.
He would give the impression that it doesn't matter. I think he also has to remain strong in the face of the storm, as it were. I mean, because you see the sentiment.
So you
He
think
asked the
he's
entire
bothered?
nation. Well, he asked the entire nation to
Actually,
pray for
if you
him
say-
Deep down
yesterday.
is-
If you say, is he bothered?
He asked the whole nation to pray for him.
Politicians are bothered. The thing is, you know what demeanor you must put out in public. But
Fake news.
Yeah.
Fake news.
And it's called the Democrat something actually in his speech this morning.
Let's ask the question, what
has
hasn't he called them?
This morning he called them a number of names.
He calls them names all the time.
Who is kinder to us, sir? Who is kinder to us as Kenyans in terms of aid and trade?
Republicans.
The Republicans are. But
Yes.
hasn't he recently stopped, you would know this very well, CT, AIDS funding into Kenya?
It's not just AIDS.
UNFA. What is it?
U.S. Funding.
PEPFAR.
In
Let's hear from Robert,
Yes.
who's calling from Nairobi, and then we can come back to that. Robert, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good
We're
morning.
fine, thank you.
Yeah, I also wanted to weigh in into this matter of Trump impeachment. And from where I sit, I think the House of Representatives has really done a very good job because Trump's presidency has proved to be more of a national security issue because the way the man actually speaks, there's some classified information that normally is shared with him, but the way he speaks, it speaks so recklessly and shares some of the very vital information that's supposed to be only done by the president. And now the U.S. security was getting worried which kind of president is this that actually they're having. So for me, I'm really in support of what has happened, but I'm wary of the Senate, whether they're actually going to support the whole thing.
Yeah, he does
Because
need
if you-
67 senators, actually, which is going to be quite difficult considering 53 of them are Republicans. So it's
Thank you,
it's
because
a
that is
Herculean
45,
task.
it's 45, 53,
Yeah.
and then with 2.
And he needs 67 to get him out of office. Or we need,
from
he
where I
doesn't
sit-
need. Yeah.
Yes, so from where I sit, I think it's going to be a very uphill task. But anyway, you see, nobody knows. It's a wait and see, but I'm not really seeing Trump going to be removed from his first term in office.
No.
So probably then now elections are actually coming next year. That is where you're really going to see Americans going to still be in support of this guy who's been crazy and talking of all sorts of things and is more of an idiot in the office. So we're going to see again, is he going to fashion that logic and make America great again? Or America is going to stand up and say, enough is enough for this guy. We'd rather get someone else from the Democrats.
It's a wait and see, Robert. Thank you very much for your call this morning. 0719-012-600.
I think the impact it might have, actually, it's a slap on the wrist, and I'm sure it will send shockwaves, or rather it will scare him somewhat, perhaps into, if he's talking state secrets openly, as the caller alluded to, then perhaps he might reconsider some of his utterances and tweets. He seems to operate and communicate primarily by tweets. This is Twitter. CT.
He'll tweet through Twitter.
Yes. Right. Yes.
Evans is calling from Kiambu. Good morning, Evans.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, Evans.
Now, I'd want to say two things. One, you realize whatever has happened in the United States last night was to embolden Donald Trump for a second term in 2020. I'd want to fully agree with Nyeri's preliminary remarks that in America the issue of moral or how a president behaves in office no longer matters. They threw it in the windows in 2016. In fact, Trump was impeached the very day he declared his interest in the president of the United States. And so going forward, what the Democrats have tried to do, try to follow what I think as he puts it, the establishment, that the president should have to behave in this kind of a manner while in office, which Trump does not really care. What he knows is that if people have the jobs, the economy is doing well, the borders are secured. That is what is important to the Americans.
Absolutely.
Not how the president should make calls to international leaders elsewhere, or how he should behave with people around. And so, one thing I've realized is that going into 2020, Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats have made it even more harder for Joe Biden and the other people to actually have a good maybe standing against Trump when the elections come in November
How
2020.
So? Can you explain that a little bit? You say they've emboldened his bid for 2020. How?
Now, you realize Trump came in, as you've been putting it, on a populist agenda. Now, you realize yesterday, as they were discussing his issues in Washington, he went back to Battle Creek in Michigan to the best. He's like, let them do whatever they're doing, the establishment do whatever they're doing in Washington. I don't care.
Exactly.
I am with the
So he's
people.
more of a hero to the people.
Yes. So what he's trying to appeal, when you look at the entire Wii speech, is appealing. Look at what they're trying to do. They want to nullify what you did in 2016. So that is the same message he will have to carry. Now, again, lastly, the issue around his case is all about he's trying to dig information against his
opponents.
Could be prospect opponent, that's Joe Biden. Now, what he wants, already he was even calling for a faster impeachment so that he can go for trial in the Senate so that he can dig more bad things about Joe Biden. And if you look at that pack of the Democrats who are running for president, it appears Joe Biden is the most significant figure there.
Right.
Now, if he damages Joe Biden, I don't see the Democrats having any chance whatsoever
Unfortunately.
to win in 2020.
But I think he knew that too, because the digs that he took,
Evans.
the digs that he took were right against Joe Biden, and I think
Sleepy
he
Joe.
knows this.
Sounds
he
a lot
knows
more
this too.
intelligent than we give him credit for.
Absolutely.
This
I
fella.
mean, he knew that if he attacked the only standing figure, as it were, for the Democrats, then they would have no choice but to elect him once again. So I mean, yeah, he doesn't look as he's a lot more intelligent than he looks.
CT, do you think Moses Kuria, this Gatundu MP you keep referring to, do you think he's more intelligent than he comes across as well?
Yes, I do.
You do. Okay. So he hides it very well, this intelligence of his.
He does a really good job because
fantastic job.
If we
gives the people what they
consider
want.
that the sort of outbursts that we characterize him with are a sign of intelligence or a lack of it thereof, then yes. But remember, this is a man who I think understands the politics of the time and what is necessary. And when he came in as the MP, I think he understood that certain things needed to be done for him to sort of like stake a certain claim or a certain space in the political realm of the time. And he met head on the opposition who had individuals who came up with similar rhetoric. So he was a one-man goon squad.
He was our madman at
Yes,
the time
yes,
in
yes.
Jubilee. You
Yes,
do need that one madman
yes.
in the market. Yeah.
Precisely. So now, the madman may not necessarily be needed now, but the madman doesn't know that.
Let the people decide. Isn't that what they always say?
Yes.
The people will decide.
No, we don't need the madman at the moment. I
So,
think what we're seeing is rent-seeking activities. This is the problem with this Gatundu.
The kind of politics that we are
Gatundu
seeing
fella.
around the country is actually that. You know, it's populist. And you look at the kind of politicians that you have, people who you'd think in different light, but they go around the country and the kind of pronouncements that they make across the political divide.
I
It's
never
that.
thought of Moses in
It's
different
about
light.
the
I'm
people.
sorry.
It's about
Ever.
the people. Well, he also probably
we
never
didn't
thought
need
of
a
you in any
madman.
light.
Oh, I hope he doesn't think of me, period. I'd hate to be running through his thoughts.
Well, you are doing very well by keeping him in your thoughts. That's what the politicians are actually doing. You know, just running. John, let me finish. In what people are actually saying, you know, about politicians and how the people react to the politicians around the country.
You know, I'd be careful to actually speak definitively about who is going to be the next president of any country. Because if there's one thing that is clear about politics is that of the uncertainty. It's not just President Obama. Even President Macron was not considered to be a likely presidential. He wasn't.
No, not at all.
Yes, he wasn't. All right. Just look at the UK and the prime ministers they've had. You could take your pickers who would be considered unlikely, but simply due to the fact that the party was in charge and they happened to be next in line.
Indeed.
America has had 8 what you call unlikely presidents. 8.
Unlikely presidents.
8.
Yes.
Yes. The president dies, somebody comes in, and it changes everything.
Trump himself was unlikely.
Coming up to the top of the hour. In the next hour, we're going to be
There you
having Jerotich Sei, you know, hashtag switch off KPLC. We'll be discussing about that in the next hour. This is coming up to 8 o'clock. This is the situation of Kenya's biggest conversation.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Right. Looking at what is happening on the roads today. Coming off Mombasa Road is not so much an issue today. A little bit of traffic round about the JKIA turn off, and that's causing a little bit of a hold up right after the Cabanas, or right from before the Cabanas, and entering all the way down to the General Motors section of the road. Looking around the city, it's actually good conditions, and this might continue for a few more days. So nothing major to report, and we're very happy that you can get to where you're going in about 10 minutes or less. Anything out of the ordinary, asking you to let us know. A few clogs here and there, but nothing that is major or out of the ordinary. Let us know what you see that we might need to share information about to keep everybody moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. the only way to start your day.
Well, it's 2 minutes after 8 o'clock. Thank you very much for tuning into The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation, broadcasting in Nairobi on 94.4, in Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, 96.7 in Eldoret, Nyeri 90.9, Malindi 97.7. We live stream the show every morning on Spice FM KE, Facebook, Spice FM KE, YouTube, www.spicefmke.spicefm.co.ke. That's our website. And of course, join the conversation on Twitter at SpiceFMKE, and our hashtag is The Situation Room. On the hot seat this morning is active citizen Jerotich Sei. Hashtag switch off KPLC. Well, we are powered by KPLC. Welcome, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me this morning.
So tell us about this switch off KPLC. First of all, you know, that's how people who know you by that, and people who don't know you ought to know you by that.
Well, Switch Off KPLC started off as a campaign led by a few irritated Kenyans who said, you know, we're tired of this overbilling by Kenya Power, and there's something wrong with our bills. And this was around January 2018. And that's how it started. And I came up with the hashtag Switch Off KPLC because I remember growing up hearing all the time, switch off the lights, switch off the lights. And we said what KPLC is actually doing is warrants it's being switched off. Not literally, because many people come and say, you know, if I switch it off, then what?
What's the alternative?
The alternative is to demonopolize this power distributor and seller named Kenya Power. And when you're a monopoly, you do anything. I was reading yesterday that, you know, the University of Nairobi required the graduates to buy gowns for rent, or is it buy gowns for 5,000 shillings? And when it's a monopoly, they set the price. And this is what's happening with KPLC. They might say they don't set the price, and that is true because it's Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority that actually sets the tariffs. But it's shall I say, an unholy alliance of actors in the energy sector that agree on the pricing, and we as consumers who should have a right to choose, who should have a right to protection, are not able to choose or be protected from the vagaries of the energy sector, the cartels running the energy sector.
In terms of competition law, shouldn't this be deemed or termed illegal?
Yes, and that's why it's a de facto monopoly. Nowhere will you see written in any books that KPLC is actually a monopoly, but it looks and smells and functions like a monopoly. Tell me what other distributor and seller of electricity we have in Kenya today. Apparently, you could go off-grid, you could have mini-grids, microgrids, and so on, but the problem is the process of approval and certification. So I could have a solar idea worth maybe 2 megawatts somewhere, and I want to run that. But by the time I get my approvals from EPRA, Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, years will have passed. So I think the system is rigged and set up against competition. And this is not constitutional because the fourth schedule of the Constitution talks about the devolution of utilities to counties. In actual fact, all 47 counties in Kenya today should be able to say what they want to do with their water, electricity, and so on and so forth. So what KPLC is doing is actually unconstitutional.
Is it illegal?
Yes.
Yes. It is illegal if they said we are a monopoly and we're not moving. Then you could challenge them on that. But the cases we currently have in court, the petitions we have in court as a Switch Off KPLC team, it's challenging aspects of the functioning of Kenya Power and, of course, the wider players in the energy sector. And by those I mean Ministry of Energy, which you know oversees and regulates and approves everything that happens. You have EPRA, which was known as ERC, so people remember ERC more. Then you have those who are doing the wider transmission, like Ketraco, that evacuates power, say, from Loyangalani to Suswa and so on and so forth. They do the interconnectors and they do the massive transmission. But KPLC, within its areas, also does a lot of transmission and maintenance. So KPLC does some transmission, maintenance, sale, distribution of power. Ketraco evacuates long distance. And then you have the generators, and there you have the Kenjans of this world, you have the Geothermal Development Corporation, you have all of those, and then a group, this amorphous group called the Independent Power Producers. And therein lies the rub in terms of what is happening to electricity consumers in Kenya. Yeah.
Who are these independent producers?
Oh, there are very many. There are very many. And the petition we currently have running in court, Petition 59 of 2018, points out 20 independent power producers. Among them, you have a mix of the diesel thermal generators, you have solar, you have wind, you have
Members of the
hydro.
public, individual members of the public, or companies?
These
or
are companies. These are
uh-huh.
private companies. These are private companies that set out to generate electricity and sell it.
To
Sell it
KPLC.
to KPLC.
The national grid.
But they have nobody
Correct.
else to sell it to.
Yes. So
This is the
the
thing.
truth here is they have nobody else to sell it to. So when you have one buyer, then you can, and what's a cartel if not a group of actors who've decided to team up together one way or another in order to maximize profits, mostly illegally. So in this case with the IPPs, for example, that we have challenged in court, we're challenging how they obtained their contracts. And their contracts are called power purchase agreements. And those power purchase agreements that can run for up to 25 years basically ensure that they are selling power to KPLC. And KPLC will buy their power. And the problem with these power purchase agreements is that they contain clauses that we call onerous clauses. These clauses mean that we will pay whether we use the power or not. And that is the problem. So if we are currently consuming, as Kenya, about 1,800 megawatts, but currently we are producing about 2,700. And the government, the Jubilee government, way back in 2013, said they were shooting for 5,000 megawatts.
Yep.
I think by 2030, they're looking at 10,000 megawatts. Look at us. We're not even consuming 1,800. We're currently at 2,800. We are paying for it.
So we're producing 2,700.
Yes,
Hundred
roughly.
and our consumption
About 1,800.
about
roughly.
1,800.
So almost 1,000 megawatt difference, but we're paying for that. So even if the independent power producers shot us up to 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000, we will still pay for the electricity we do not consume. And this is why our
But
bills
don't
are so
those
high.
agreements have a minimum? Like saying, if I'm an independent producer, basically, I would assume, trying to think from where an independent producer would come from, I'm investing so heavily because it's a capital-intensive investment, right? And I'm investing so heavily in putting up this plant that generates power, whether it's thermal, wind, or solar, whatever. I need to have some certain guarantees that because I have my machines running, I'm going to be able to take my power somewhere. So don't you have like minimums and say your capacity, your overall capacity is 5 megawatts, and at least you every day you shall make sure that you produce 2 megawatts?
Well, you could look at it that way, but I think the deeper issue behind the independent power producers, and that's why we refer to them as the energy cartels, is that the entire exercise was set up for purposes of rent seeking. Not really for the production of power, but to say if we can work into our contractual clauses the take or pay, then no matter what, we will be paid. So even if you look at last week, the President commissioned the 50 megawatt Garissa plant.
Yeah.
I think in June or July, it was Lake Turkana wind power. So here we are bragging as Kenyans about being extremely clean in terms of the energy that we produce. I think we're top 10 or we're number 10 in terms of geothermal capacities in the world. So we are the bastion of clean energy. But if we are paying for the overproduction, whether we use it or not, then at the end of the day, that clean energy might as well be dirty. And if those contracts were issued dodgily, that clean energy might is as dirty as, for example, the thermal diesel. So we talk about shutting down thermal diesel. The Decolonize campaign is talking about coal and saying never ever in Lamu, which is a World Heritage Site, notwithstanding, even if it wasn't, why would we have coal in Lamu? So at the end of the day in Kenya, how I see it is the energy sector, the independent power producers have just rolled themselves into one big taco and a tortilla of clean, dirty energy, provided they get paid. Now, if power purchase agreements were skewed in favor of take and pay, So it means that if I have 50 megawatts and, Eric, as you were asking, 20 is taken, I'll be paid for the 20. And it means that that extra 30, you either store it, because there's storage capacity that you can then sell. And that's why countries like Germany are almost practically giving electricity away because there's an overproduction, but they don't operate under the take or pay. So it means that you as an independent power producer will hustle kabisa to make sure you find the buyer, and you make sure that, and that buyer who has bought from you will make sure that it is selling power to you at the lowest possible price. So it becomes competition. But when there's no competition, when it's a monopoly, so that's the issue. But it becomes so complex and so technical.
It does sound very complex.
Yeah, it is.
I was wondering, are you a lawyer, an engineer?
I don't know. I mean,
in intelligence, because you seem to have it all wrapped up in a nice tackle.
I'm a bit of a geek, a bit of a nerd when it comes to I don't come from the energy sector. I come from the humanitarian and development sector. And I just became interested in this matter when I looked at my personal domestic bills and said,
and you wondered why.
Haki,
Enough is enough. Yeah.
Enough is enough.
Interestingly enough, last week we had a caller who basically read through her electricity bill, and she was some things that I didn't even know existed on the bill, in the
tariffs and
taxes and service charges, etc., etc., etc. But when you look at it across board and you compile those numbers, then you can understand the millions that are actually being taken away, as it were. How would a new entrant into this do it differently in an acceptable manner that people would not being fleeced, as it were?
That's a fantastic question. And one of the things that we have regularly on social media, but we are also in court exploring these issues or asking these questions, is how is it that the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, EPRA, has the right to push so many pass-through tariffs in our bill? Because in your bill, you have your kilowatt per hour. So if we are paying, if you're consuming less than 100 kilowatts a month, you're at 10 shillings per kilowatt hour. And then on top of that, what do you have? You then have a warmer, which is the Water
Resource
Management Authority. That's the hydro side of things and so on. Then you have rural electrification, which was also behind the Garissa solar plant and the last mile Manenos, etc., etc. And then you have fuel. Now, fuel is extremely controversial because, as I tweet, even if we were floating away as Kenya, like Noah's Ark, and the dams were full to overflowing and we had incredible hydro capacity, we'd still be paying fuel cost charges. And those fuel cost charges link to the diesel IPPs.
Are they not? Is that not a duplicate of the hydro? Because you've just mentioned another tariff previously, one of the first tariffs you mentioned.
No, so warmer, the warmer tariff, because you do need diesel power even to power some of these clean energy or renewable energy spaces. So when you have your warmer tariff, then you have dealt with hydro. When you have fuel, you're paying the diesel IPPs. When you have REP, rural electrification, you're paying for those last mile Manenos. And then you have a forex tariff. And that is any loan that the government of Kenya has taken on our behalf for energy purposes, we are also paying for that. And then you have an inflation adjustment because every 6 months or so, you check, or is it 3 or 6 months, you check to see what has happened. So by the end of it, and then you're charged VAT now. Here, Nyeri, is the problem. You're charged VAT on what? On your kilowatt per hour consumption and your fuel. Now, assuming this fuel, which is called heavy fuel oil, it's not even correct diesel, not the diesel you put in your vehicle. It's sludge,
Crude.
it's taka. It's actually maybe
the
costs
waste.
about 40 to 50%. They imported likely duty-free or very light in terms of duty. And they have paid that duty. And then we are paying VAT again on top of that.
What is it used for, this sludge?
Sludge, it's to power the diesel thermal. So diesel thermal
So
does
you
not
burn
need,
to-
you burn it to generate. So if you
generate
drive
power.
to Thika, you will see some billowing smoke where there's a thermal diesel plant. So
At
wherever you see
Pretoria,
thermal diesel plants, you will see the billowing, polluting smoke. That's the sludge because it's not pure diesel, or else it would be completely, our fuel tariff would be even higher. So to answer your question, if we broke down the monopoly, if we ensured that these pass-through tariffs, which are opaque, you don't know how they are calculated. I look at these Greek-type, quadratic-type equations, and for me, who failed math badly, I just know I will never be able to understand it. So it's deliberately opaque. So if you took all of that away, and we were being sold electricity, that kilowatt per hour cost, and maybe VAT if you had to, or even one pass-through. But look at everybody's bill. It's crazy. I have paid 340,000 shillings so far in the past 11 months.
What?
Domestically.
Are you running a?
Thank you.
plant?
That's close to 30,000
maybe
a month.
growing something. You
Maybe I'm running a Gap sweatshop in my basement. I'm not.
It's because of this campaign of yours, probably. You know,
They slap on. That's the way they're making you pay.
Can I ask something as well? I
Sure.
mean, so what does the government actually do with our tax if they then go on to tax us on the provision of services that they should be giving in the first instance? What about the tax, consumer tax, the tax we pay elsewhere? Where is that going? Shouldn't they be taking that from, or shouldn't they be using those taxes to provide these services?
They should. And I would also say that the broad taxpayer, so even though you don't have an electricity account, and there are only about 6.7 million electricity consumers, and some of whom are commercial. So the vast majority of other Kenyans who may be living in a house, so they are not the direct owners of that meter, are also paying tax. When you buy sugar, when you buy
Absolutely,
matchboxes.
consumer tax.
So taxpayers in general also cover the cost of some of these rent-seeking independent power producer bills that we are forced to pay. So it's a combination of electricity consumers and also the broader taxpayer. And this is really, really unacceptable.
We have in the studio Jerotitse. She's an active citizen. That's how she describes herself, as an active citizen. The one behind the campaign Switch Off KPLC. We are discussing, of course, the energy sector this morning. Of course, we had one of the board members of the EPRA the other day. I wish she's actually listening, that she can call in. She can also respond to this. 18 minutes past 8 o'clock. We'll be opening up the phone lines in about 10 minutes. Good morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Live streaming the show on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on our YouTube channel, Spice FM KE, and also on www.spicefm.co.ke. In the studio on the hot seat is Jerotitse, active citizen.
Yeah, it sounds to me like a David and a Goliath situation that you're in. It's not just complex for the layman, even for yourself. The undertaking, of course, is Herculean. Do you see yourself winning this? The court cases, the petitions that you have? Or is it just to gather momentum initially and see where it takes you, or to at least have done something about it? Have
there been any successes?
Well, because the wheels of justice, and thanks for your question too, Nyeri, because the wheels of justice turn quite slowly, it's taken us quite a while to get to the point where we are having hearings. Now, what happened as a backstory, because of course Kenyans love backstories, is that Apollo Mboya, who was initially the lawyer for Switch Off KPLC, where he was the litigant but also the petitioner, last October, so October 2018, decided enough was enough, and he settled the case out of court. Now, you cannot...
Settled, please expound.
Sorry.
Settled.
So they were
settled with who?
Settled.
Yes.
How did he settle? No. Let's please.
So I will share the tea in a short little while. Now, what happened was he consented to an out-of-court settlement, and consent orders were issued. And these consent orders for Petition 6. So Petition 6 focuses on us, the electricity consumers, the overbilling, vendor cartels, fraudulent meter tampering, faulty transformers. You remember the Daystar one that just blew up, wires. So it focuses on consumer and the impact on the consumer. Petition 59 is the IPPs, the cartels that I've just been talking about before we went on a short break. So Petition 6 and 59 were both settled out of court in rapid succession by Apollo Mboya.
What do we mean by settled? Please
Settled
expound.
means there's no more case. Our petition imeisha.
And how does that happen?
Yeah, what was done?
What
in
was
order,
done in
yeah.
order for that to happen?
Now, in order for that to happen, and there's affidavits and the matter
Was
is
he
in court.
authorized
so
to do that?
Legally,
As a litigant,
He was
you
litigant.
can.
he was a litigant, so
Was
he
his
was
case.
instructing himself.
Yes.
but in public and the Switch of KPLC campaign, he was working for Wakenya, and he was saying, "I'm doing this for all of
On
you." In
behalf of-
fact, in the petition documents, he makes references to all our support, including mine and everybody. The Switch of KPLC Gmail account. He talks about a public interest matter, class action, etc. But ultimately, it wasn't. It was just him as a litigant, and he was a petitioner,
Technically.
along with some other fly-by-night NGO that was petitioner number 2. So when he settled, it was very easy because he did not have to come back to anybody.
This word settled. Please expound.
So-
we need, put it in layman's terms.
So-
what does
Or
it
if
mean?
you can just ask, was money given somewhere in order for this case to go away?
We have heard, and you always have to underscore allegedly. Allegedly, money was poured somewhere between 60 to 75 M. Allegedly.
Nice.
Lord.
And we have affidavits filed in court. We have additional supporting evidence. And ultimately, there's two things. Number one, you cannot settle a public interest matter out of court. It has to be seen to its logical conclusion. So even if Apollo alikuwa ameridhika and he said, "I'm fine,"
But he was
should
only
have stepped.
litigant, so technically it wasn't a public. He used that for its reputation to build up.
Correct, but we have case law that demonstrates the contrary and says that even if you are an individual petitioner and it's a public interest matter, we can all enjoin. And what we're trying to do is enjoin even after the fact. So this whole 2019 has been spent trying to prise both of these petitions open again. So that was number one, public interest. How do you settle a public interest matter personally and privately? Whether it's for money, whether it's for influence, whether it's for access. Number two, you can always throw out consent orders if there are things that are found to have happened. Concealment of material facts, collusion, fraud. And because the case is ongoing, I will not go into great detail, but we have filed further affidavits that demonstrate exactly this. So while we're making noise on social media, and some of us are called keyboard warriors and kelele noisemakers and so on, we are actually running very serious matters in court. And provided jurisprudence supports justice, you are asking the question, are we going to win? We are going to win this case because overwhelming evidence around how this matter was settled needs to come into play, and we hope the judge views all the information and then makes a decision accordingly. And once that happens, we prize open petition 6 and petition 59. And this time, I will expect every single person to be enjoined, because that means Cherotich will never ever be able to settle this matter privately. And by the way, I'm not alone. I may look like the face because oftentimes there's a face, but we call ourselves the Energy Justice 6. There's Victor Otieno, there is Wanjeri Nderu, there is Eva Mutua, and there's Fred Asira. We actually met as tweeps we didn't even know each other. And we said, guys, we want to push to reopen these cases that were closed illegally. And we said, are you willing to be applicants? So we're applicants. And then there's a fantastic gentleman in the diaspora named James Gitau, who is also one of the applicants pushing to open this. And for petition 59, it is a company, Gitson Energy, that is pushing to reopen a petition 59. So it's all complex, but it's for Kenyans to know that as we are educating in the public spaces, social media, there's a very complex legal process ongoing. And if those two come together, we will have justice for electricity consumers. And then we had a march on July the 25th where we delivered petitions. So there's also that public angle to the CJ, to Parliament, and to the Office of the President to say, guys, we have very serious demands. Can you please pay some attention because consumers are suffering?
What will you want the win to look like?
The win to look like will be a demonopolization of Kenya Power. And in order to do that, you also have to unpick the workings through, for example, a 20-year go back 20 years and do a forensic systems and financial audit to actually understand what went wrong. Demonopolize KPLC, respect the fourth schedule of the Constitution, allow for multiple players to come on board, and any place where there was an illegal or irregularly approved power purchase agreement, we want those to be rescinded, because the Constitution is very clear around public procurement and assets disposal. So if anything was not followed, the Finance Management Act, if there was violations, if there was violations around all of that. So we want the undoing of illegally issued contracts, and that means we have fewer rent seekers. And when you have fewer rent seekers, you have the genuine power
So the power bill
generators.
comes down.
Yes, you have genuine power generators who will compete to sell power, first of all, to distributors, who will then compete for our business. And depending on whether we like that distributor or that distributor, we'll be able to choose.
You have choice,
And you can make a plan. I think the whole issue here is you can't plan. If you have a 10,000 shilling bill this month, next month 2,000 shillings, the next month 45,000,
45.
and then you get 150, and KPLC says, pay first,
Then
and
we
then
talk.
we can
discuss
talk.
it.
Yes.
And once they see you pay, they see your appetite. Your appetite for BS.
Yes.
And once your appetite for BS is established, then they will keep
can
They
milking
engage
it.
you on that.
So you may pay 60K, you pay it, like I have had to pay like 55,000. I pay it because apparently I have an appetite for BS, but no, it's because I don't want lights to be off, I don't want food to go bad, I want the kids to be able to do homework, I need to be able to function. And especially if you're in an urban setting, what can't you do without electricity? If KPLC went off now, unless you guys have a backup generator, we're in the
It's
we're
very
in the
little
dark.
that you can do.
Yes,
Yes,
so we want
indeed.
choice, and we want to be able to plan, and we want to be able to, because look, how many families are not going to coast, for example, for Christmas? If you look at it, it is school fees, it is commodities, it is electricity, it is all these things, the rising cost of living, and our lives are impossible. But as middle class, we're pretending.
good.
We're good.
Borrowing.
We're borrowing. We're spending 120% of what we earn, and so on.
Gerotich, the six of you, of course, it takes you a lot of time, energy, and of course, financial resources. How do you mobilize your funds?
You know what? This is 100% pro bono initiative. In fact, I was speaking to, I think, my father this morning. He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm here and I'm there." He says, "Hey, and how does this enable
How
you
does
pay
it-
school
how does it
fees?"
pay your bills?
It doesn't. You know, I'm a humanitarian and development consultant, so I have to have that as my main gig to earn an income. And this is my contribution as an active citizen. I didn't know 2 years ago that I'd be here today. But once you start and you believe in what is right and you know that justice is on your side, you just go for it. Nobody pays us. But we have a pay bill, a switch of KPLC pay bill that we have activated from time to time, for example, to just pay basic filing fees with our pro bono legal firm, because our legal representatives, our counsel right now are not asking for any money. Nobody is getting paid for this. We are not donor driven, we are not donor funded. And the monies we have raised, maybe 176K maximum, has come from the public.
Any
often-
opportunity for... sorry, go ahead.
I often say that, in order to seek a change or to see change, apart from seeking it, people have to get irritated enough.
Yeah.
Are we at that point where it's enough, backs against the wall, and something needs to be done? Because people are annoyed, but nobody really says anything about it until maybe somebody raises an issue, and then you find that people join the foray and say, actually, you know what? I actually don't bode well with this, and I don't like it, and I want to see something done. Are we irritated enough to see some kind of change? Because they're the six, and there are people who've come along with you and say, yes, I feel this. But generally, are people pissed off enough to say, okay, look, can't continue like this, and we've got to ask the questions and point those questions in the right direction?
I'll quote a very recent powerful hashtag, Wajinga Nyinyi. We are not mad enough. And I think even when we are mad, as the middle class, we tend to let, and by the way, the domestic consumer, KPLC will say that it's actually heavy industries that give them the most money. But if you move away from that, it's not the last mile consumers. It's not those guys in shags who run at 50 kilowatts a month or 30 kilowatts a month. It's the middle class domestic consumers in urban settings. We, as the middle class, have spent many years expecting the kids from Kibra, from Kayole, from Dandora to do the demonstrating. So we are mad. We talk about it. We'll discuss it here on this show. But if I call a march tomorrow, nobody will rock up because we're used to other people fighting our battles, and we hide. So yes, we're irritated. But that irritation has not translated into any actionable movement, except by the few who are now angry enough. And I do thank and appreciate and value every single Kenyan who's contributed to the Switch of KPLC conversation. So we are many, but it needs to move from vision and irritation into action.
You need to appear. You need to come out of the keyboards.
You need to stand up and be counted.
It's 8:30. We have Cherotitse, active citizen, switch off KP, hashtag switch off KPLC is her campaign. Of course, that's what we're discussing, the issues affecting the energy sector in the country. Take a look at what's happening on the roads and we come back and continue this conversation. Good morning.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
All right, where Mombasa inbound is actually free of any traffic whatsoever. Islay towards town is a total mess, unfortunately, and Jogo Road heading to town is very slow. Understand that we have a diversion of traffic towards Jogo Road because of the close of Enterprise Road, and we tend to see this clog up around this hour. From the 24th, things should be fine when Enterprise Road actually does open up after the construction that is taking place there. There's traffic from Church Army all the way to town as well, so this comes from Jogo Road as well. Apart from that, nothing too bad in other roads in the city, and everything seems to be moving along just smoothly, unless anything interesting pops up. Do let us know, but for now, you're fine.
Chilled Spice. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Morning.
It's 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. We have Cherotitse in the studio. Let's come back to that issue of IPPs for a moment, if you don't mind. Are they required? Are they a necessity?
Yes. In fact, the origin of IPPs was really, it was more the diesel thermal to say, when we have gaps in hydro or geo, how do we make up for that? So the origins were not wrong. But if you go to a report that was suppressed by the then MD Gishuru of KPLC, it's called the Nyanja report. It was never made public. That Nyanja report actually unpicked how it was that the IPP saga began. And when the IPP saga began, then it was cartels that said, how about we engage in rent-seeking action? So the origin was good. Yes, you do need additional independent power producers that kick in when they need to kick in to support, or because you have what they call, and I won't go into technical details because I'm not even from the sector, you have the base load, that is the hydroelectricity, that is the geothermal, and then you have a little bit of the others that come in when we have droughts. And that's why every time we complain about our fuel cost charge, we're told there was a drought. Right. Even when it's raining as heavily as it's raining. I don't know if you saw the Masinga Dam
burst their banks, yes.
We will still be told that there was a drought and that we have to pay fuel cost charges. Why? Because of the take or pay clauses. Those guys are being paid whether the dams are overflowing or not. So long
Would you
as
rather
they
they switch off their machines at that point?
Yes, but it means you have to change the contractual space, which is extremely expensive. And this is what Ministry of Energy, the CS Keter says, to terminate or to alter contracts will be such heavy penalties on the electricity consumer, surprise, and the government of Kenya in general, that they decide, let's just stay with these guys for the next 25 years. And we're saying, no, actually, the opportunity cost in getting rid of these guys will actually clean our air, because we will not be using diesel thermal as much, and we will be changing the contractual agreement to take and pay, not take or pay. And Keter has said recently, going forward, our contracts will be based on take and pay. But that's not completely true, because what about all the other 20, 30 IPPs who we are unholily wed to for the next 20 to 25 years? And we've already committed, signed those power purchase agreements, we'll be paying them. So if Cherotich tomorrow starts, Cherotich solar power, then maybe my power purchase agreement, if I have greased enough palms, if I've done what I need to do, and by the time I'm getting my contract, maybe it'll be based on take and pay. But there are those that are politically connected And we're not even able to unpick the beneficial owners. We're not able to open some of these contracts because they're hidden behind shell after shell after shell after shell company.
As
you would, because I wouldn't want to be seen as a person if I was a high up somewhere in political circles or in business circles. I wouldn't want to be seen as a beneficial owner of XYZ IPP that is getting paid whether we use the power or not.
Wouldn't it be better for the government, Kenya Power, for now, finding a way of meeting that gap? So we are overproducing, which is what the government wanted to do anyway, raise our production capacity to 5,000 megawatts, eventually 10,000. We are at 2,000. 2,000 what?
About 2,700.
2,700, and we are consuming 1,800. There's about 1,000 megawatts that's going to waste. Wouldn't it be better for us to push KPLC to actually be able to consume?
Is it actually going to waste?
Is it going to waste?
Yes. The 1,000 or so.
Well, if it's not being bought.
It's not being bought, but it's
being
being paid
used.
for.
Yes, I've heard.
What happens to it?
It is being produced. It's not being uptaken.
I think some IPPs, I'm not sure, Lake Turkana Wind Power, with whom I have a huge issue because they've cost the taxpayer about 42 billion shillings irregularly, but that's a story for maybe this day or another day. But I think they're working on some kind of storage so that you can store that power. But even when they store it, we're still paying for it. So it's going to waste in that we are not consuming it, but they are getting paid whether we consume it or not.
You said that what we don't have is sort of the manpower. We don't see the action come from the middle class. I think one of the reasons for this, because I've sat here and really tried to sort of absorb what you're saying. There's a lot of information, and thank you for that. But the understanding of what's going on for the layman, especially somebody who's not invested as invested as you are in the cause, but of course is frustrated and agitated and is going through the same thing in terms of the bills that they're facing. Unless you fully understand what's going on, you'll feel the unjust or, the unfairness of it all, but you won't know what it is you need to tackle. So do you think perhaps you could unpack this and repackage it for public consumption, for my sake too? And I feel then you'd get better engagement. There's a lot of litigation. A lot of people are averse to that in terms of the complexity in and of itself. People just get scared and switch off. And that's what I have seen. I've followed from time to time the litigation. In terms of the actual facts and the thuggery and who is in cahoots with who, people don't have any knowledge of this. So how we are being scammed, yes, we feel something's not right, but we don't understand it. Perhaps it's something you should consider. Sorry, it wasn't even a question, it was a suggestion.
That's a really good suggestion, well taken. I suppose, and because we do this pro bono and in our free time, which becomes many, many hours, thousands of hours since we began this campaign, is that we have not yet, maybe, for example, done a little handbook on how it is you're getting ripped off by KPLC. So we rely on regular dispatches to the field via Twitter or buyer beware on Facebook, or I've seen a lot of conversation on WhatsApp groups, chamas in churches, family gatherings, whenever people have a chance. But you're absolutely right, because what we try to do, and I'm sorry I've inundated you with a lot of technical and legal
No, we need
jargon,
it.
but in actual fact, every Kenyan should know, if you think something is wrong with your bill, something is likely wrong with your bill. And Kenyans need to know Kenya Power is the tip of the iceberg. And Kenya Power is the company that the consumer interacts with. And Kenya Power not only sells you expensive electricity with these pass-through tariffs and levies that we don't understand, set by other bodies like EPRA and approved by Ministry of Energy, but Kenya Power is also in and of itself rotten and corrupt. The DCI said that 150 billion shillings have been stolen from Kenya Power. Kenya Power is behind these vendor cartels, these fake tokens being stolen. So if I was to tell an ordinary electricity consumer something is wrong, and the problem is with Kenya Power, but when we unpick it, then we say, then you have transmission, you have generation, you have regulation, you have authorization. So we usually leave that and we say the tip of the iceberg is Kenya Power. And something is wrong because something is wrong. If you think about it, if your meter was at 50 and at the end of the month it's reading 100 and you look at it, the meter person reads it, you see you have consumed 50. It looks like it's moved 50.
And you're moved out of town for 2 weeks.
Or let's say you are even at home, for argument's sake, let's say you are even at home and 50. And you know that 50 should usually cost you maybe 1,500 shillings, for example. But you've consumed this 50 and you get a bill for 15,500. Now, what a specialist, an engineer, explained to me not too long ago was, think of it this way. There's a computer system at KPLC. This is an ISO certified company. This is not a fly-by-night organization.
The computer is also certified.
The computer is certified. The computer, I don't know about the manager, but there's algorithms and systems that are set, and that's why we want a forensic audit. Think of yourself in the car in traffic. You're not moving, but you're revving. So you're going, So that 50, you've been revving. You're idling and revving. And if you rev somewhere and you rev somewhere else, then that 1,500 looks like 15,000. That's why they say you burn more fuel when you're idling in traffic as opposed to hitting the highway. So if I were to explain it to layperson, I would say even when your meter readings look okay and you're wondering, but why am I paying more than I usually pay? It's because there's also shenanigans afoot. So you have layer upon layer of abuse of the consumer, and without correct consumer protection, which is guaranteed by the Constitution, the monopoly will continue to do what it's doing. So everyone is eating. The IPPs, the middlemen and women, the cartels, everybody is eating courtesy of Wakenya.
Is there a Consumer Protection Act to put into effect
there
the constitutional provision?
There is, but as you know, our constitution is often just looked at as something that is just to be lying by your bedside, just like the Gideon's Bibles that you'd find in hotel rooms. You'll find the constitution somewhere there, and you look at it. There's no fidelity, respect. So consumer protection, public procurement, asset disposal, these things are not there.
Who owns KPLC?
Who owns KPLC? Government is at about 50%. Then there is a very major shareholder who the next biggest non-government shareholder is part of a high-up political family in Kenya.
What's the name?
The Kenyatta family.
Right.
Allegedly. I always put allegedly so I don't get picked up when I... Allegedly. I say all...
That's the operative word,
all
allegedly.
protocol observed.
You even allegedly came to the studio.
I allegedly came to... And I allegedly said these things.
Right.
But you see, so then you have
And then their shares
the
are, of
first
course, floated
family. And then you have many other
the Securities
shareholders.
Exchange.
You could be a shareholder, I could be a shareholder, Securities Exchange, etc. So, but 50% is the government. Is the government.
Is the
yes.
taxpayer.
If you have shareholders that are members of the public because it's publicly listed, perhaps this is one way to actually go about making a point as opposed to
AGMs.
demonstrating. You're talking about the middle class. It's more than likely that these shareholders would belong in that demographic. Why not encourage that sort of economic movement or boycott as opposed to trying to get, because you will not get the middle class protesting. It's associated with violence. People are comfortable in their homes. You're not going to get people marching or, sorry to say, but you appreciate this yourself.
In Kenya.
So there's other mechanisms, through economic channels, one of which is the NSE. If this is a stock that is floated, people could show their repulsion to their actions by selling off their shares or not trading, not buying their shares and so forth. And of course, this could shake them up in the right way or where it hurts in the
Or
pocket.
buying more shares and appearing at the AGM and actually causing a ruckus at the AGM and raising these issues and ensuring that the management is answerable to this.
For example, I completely agree. I think there's a multiplicity of approaches that can be adopted. And as a Kenyan middle class person, and I went marching, but I also have been marching for many years. And
You're a marcher.
Are you
a
not
marcher.
scared?
Of course
You're not
I'm
afraid?
Of course I'm scared. Anybody who goes to a demonstration not scared is foolish, especially when you have police brutality just lurking. I mean, we were tear gassed 4 times.
Well, it's not a protest unless you're tear gassed.
Yeah, apparently. And yet we have a right to peaceful assembly. So it's a self-fulfilling cycle. Middle class looks, they say, Mr. Kikumeza, ama kukula, ama whatever, tear gas, and so they stay away from it. And they stay away from it, and then the injustice continues. But I said, what if KPLC really, as a snake eating its tail, grinds itself to a halt? Look at the transformers exploding like popcorn all over the city. What if we went without power in Nairobi for 2 weeks? Do you know that this same middle class comfortable in their homes will come out? You see, when you said, are we irritated enough? We have not been pushed up against the wall enough. And if I came out, if other so-called, by the way, what's middle class? We are all one paycheck away from poverty. So I don't even know this middle class.
Just because you live in Nairobi doesn't mean that you're
I would say middle class and lazy have become synonymous. But I want to challenge as a member of the middle class to say, are we that lazy that we are unable to come out and stand up for what is right.
Wajinga nyinyi.
I think it has always been
Wajinga sisi.
it has always been the attitude that even if it's an extra shilling that they're asking me to pay, I'd rather pay the extra shilling than go through the agitation or the inconvenience, the agitation process. But to say that to get things to change, there's a lot more that needs to be done. So then is what you have to suffer in the meantime worth it to see the impact or the change that you want to see eventually?
For me, yes. Absolutely.
Some questions, some words of encouragement, some contribution to Cherotich Say and the hashtag Switch Off KPLC campaign 0719-012-600. Also join the conversation on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and Twitter at Spice FM KE. And what's your Twitter handle again, Cherotich?
Cherotich Say.
At Cherotich Say, and Cherotich with a J and Say with a double I.
Yes.
This is the Situation Room. It's 14 minutes to 9 o'clock. Good morning.
Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So the phone line again, 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We're talking about the energy sector, all right? Anything good that you find with KPLC at all, Cherotich? You had power this morning.
I had power this morning. You know, I think that if KPLC made at that corporate level a decision to change, if the board did its oversight, performed its oversight role correctly, perhaps we could see a change. You see, when people say, you want to switch it off, I'm like, no, I want it to reform.
But what would incentivize them to change?
Zero. Nada, because the profits, the rent-seeking, the backroom deals. So that's why I say if we had a forensic audit, because I'm sure there's some good stuff there. I'm sure, and many people who reach out to us, and I want to thank all those informers who come anonymously and tell, some of these are KPLC staff. Not every single Kenyan in the energy sector is an outright thief. So, yes, thank you, KPLC, for my power this morning. I don't appreciate my bill, but I appreciate the fact that we have at least a level of infrastructure that allows us to receive electricity. Now, do better.
This is the thing, because there's always this whole, people want to use a comparative analysis.
Can I ask you to hold your thought, please, so as we hear from Matthew from Nakuru? Matthew, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think Sei's group is long overdue. Sei, good morning.
Good morning.
Kindly kwanza hiyo pay bill namba yako tafadhali tuma pande hii tujue tunaweza kusaidiana namna gani, sababu
utupe kitu.
Tunaumia but in the wrong direction. Unajua hii pesa badala nilipe bill ya 7,000 and I'm rarely at home. I'd rather that 7,000 goes to our work cost.
Thank you.
You get?
Thank you.
Do you have a pay bill number?
Personally, I'm looking at a situation whereby I got disconnected because of what I would say is KPLC's incompetence. My fuse.
What happened?
The main fuse got banned, but sasa just to replace that fuse, it's now, that was August last year. To date, you call asking for that fuse, someone tells you we're going to sort that out. It's way past a year now.
Imagine. This is, down the food chain of KPLC, you have people, everyone is eating. Even when you're part of last mile, you're told lipa 75K to connect to Vuruta the steamer from that post to your house. When your fuse goes, somebody wants their palm greased. So at no point is the consumer safe from somebody somewhere in KPLC trying to fleece them. So I really empathize.
KPLC is a microcosm of the Kenyan.
You hit the nail on the head, and this is why you cannot separate what is going wrong in the energy sector from government
in the country.
Exactly. If you want to understand Kenya, understand the energy sector.
Do you think we're just so used to being shafted that nobody cares? That's why you're not getting the people out on the street?
Tena without Vaseline. So we are so used. We are so used to being shafted Really, we are.
That
we
we've
are.
accepted it as
we
the
have
norm.
accepted it
Where
as
you're
a
grateful
norm.
that you had
So you
electricity.
insulate yourself and you hope that they use protection while they're, well, at least they use protection.
This is the thing,
but
though.
this is how crude. This is how crude it is.
I actually don't think people are used to it. Not really. It's more a question of what it is you think you need to survive. That's not acceptance. No. It is what you call passive acceptance or passive. There's a term we use. You see, when someone is passive aggressive, if I'm using now the terminology as is often used, the person will not tell you what they truly and honestly think. Now, how does the aggression come out? Ours comes out during elections. For that brief moment when we get completely tribally insane,
we let it out.
We discharge
All of
the
it.
charge.
Yes, all these things we're talking about. Then we go back to our pretend mode. And then we continue because we have understood it is the way to survive.
Let's go to Kisii.
Yes.
This is Joseph. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning, all of you.
Good morning.
Thank you.
I'm so happy now that discussion is just right there. And Kenyans have been suffering, not even the middle class. Those people who are using KPLC units and those power, they are all suffering. Because even me, I've been doing a comparison between what we are paying and what the rest are paying. It's quite different. And so it has just made me to alert all the people who are paying the KPLC in our plot. And so they have just come into sense, and we have just forced the landlord to ensure he is contributing to the debt we are paying, because we are also experiencing some extra debt that we don't understand, and the bills are not coming into flat rate. If you pay 100 bob, some get 5 units, some get 2 units. Now we are just wondering, and I appreciate.
Is this a prepaid meter that you have?
No, we are paying the token. We are paying
The
for
token.
the token.
Prepaid. You see, what happened was when there was, and this is what we understand, but there's so much obfuscation, you never really know. But what we understand is when this fake token scam worth about 35 million came up, and by the way, who runs a fake token scam if not staff of KPLC? So you end up going to buy your token somewhere. And you don't know that is a cloned token from the original server that's supposed to be selling you a token. So you buy your cloned token, you're just happy, you have your power. Then the next time, so when KPLC discovered, and they said, no, we have to recoup our money, they're actually making consumers responsible for paying back that
their own
scam. Exactly.
Scam.
So you'll get your bill, and people have asked me on social media, they've said, so now I got my bill with all the levies and whatever, this and that, and then I had debt, 340 bob. They say, what debt? Who do I owe? That is now Kenya Power trying to recover. It's
trying to punish you for
Exactly.
allowing its own staff.
Yes.
to
Is it
steal
that they
from
think
you.
we won't read and scrutinize the
Yes.
bills?
Yes.
Is that the case?
Yes.
Have you seen it on your bill? We don't read these things.
You look at
We
it,
actually
and by the
don't.
way, when I do a comparison, if I look at somebody's token on their phone, their token or their bill, you sometimes see fuel cost charge, sometimes you see fuel levy, sometimes you see. So it's actually deliberately obscure,
And
so that at no
complicated,
time,
yeah.
and so this time you will have forex as the first item on your bill, and then you'll have fuel cost, then you'll have one. Next time you will have inflation adjustment, then you'll have this. So
It
you're
keeps changing.
It sounds like a cryptocurrency in terms of the...
yes, so
Let's
that
go.
you don't know and you're just frustrated.
But what's happening? Let's go to Mombasa. Solomon in Kinango. Good morning, Solomon.
I'm not in Kinango.
That's what you told us the last time. So you're in Mombasa then?
Kinango. I'm in Mombasa. yes.
Okay.
Kinango, there's a school called Kiromo. Now, about KPLC, well, especially when it comes to the token issue,
Yes.
you see, sometimes what I've learned is token issue, how token works, they work like airtime or like DSTV. You see, these are systems that are created by people, and of course we have geniuses in Kenya that know how to manipulate those systems, not generally like KPLC stuff. I've had a lot of people who generate airtime, DSTV codes that maybe you can watch premium maybe at 500 shillings a month. So it's all about there's a loophole when it comes to this system, which they have to lock it out. And sometimes you find that the prepaid bills, there's always a difference every month. You buy 1,000 and
You get
taking
40
all the
units.
not even on the units. You find the inflation is lower, the exchange rate is lower, fuel levy is lower, but but you expect maybe the tokens should be higher, but you find even they are much even lower. So sometimes you wonder what is not going on. Yeah.
It's that revving sometimes, and also with when you don't have graduated tariffs, meaning that you're either consuming less than 100 kilowatts, so that you pay 10 shillings per kilowatt hour. But if you exceed 100 kilowatts per hour per month, over a period of 3 months, the average, you jump up to the tariff of 15 shillings and 80 cents. So you're either paying 10 shillings or 15 shillings and 80 cents. You don't know when they jumped you. They are measuring. They're calculating over 3 months. Then now, when you realize you've gone up to 15 shillings and 80 cents, you will have to stay there for another 3 months, bringing your kilowatt hour consumption per hour consumption down to under 100. And then only after that will you go back to 10 shillings, and you will stay there for 3 months. And if you exceed, let's say Christmas, you have wagenis, you're doing what? You exceed, and over 3 months again, your average is over 100, you go back up. And it's musical chairs, plus these tariffs, plus the revving, plus debt, plus everything. We are really in the dark. with
Simplify
KPLC.
it for us. A household, 2.4 children, 3 children, let's say, living in Nairobi.
Yeah.
So you have your TV, there's an iron which consumes a lot. I guess the water heater, most people now have the one that
Insta
heats.
shower.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What sort of electricity bill should I expect per month that you would feel is fair?
I would say, and from what I've read, again, I don't come from the energy sector, but from the research I've done, I mean, a household like that, without exceptional, like you're not baking every day and you're not ironing for 20 people and so on, you would be at about 200 kilowatt hours a month. So that means you'd be in that 15 shilling and 80 cents category, because the 100 and below was really for what they used to call the lifeline consumers, the very low, like under 100. So your household would then be at about 200.
It may also depend on where you live.
And it depends on where you
So
live.
times that by 15 or times that by 16?
Well,
around
times
that?
that by
4,000,
So 8,000 shillings?
So what is 200 times 15 shillings and 80 cents?
16.
3,000.
3,000 shillings.
And then
yeah.
if you didn't have all these crazy, now with all the crazy pass-throughs, which can make up to 40% of your bill, it's almost double. So your 3,000 minus all of the extras would be that's what you're consuming. By the time
now
you've
we add
paid
up.
the pass-through tariffs and the additional levies, you're at 6,000 something. So you would say such a household in Nairobi, because Nairobi is more expensive, in Nairobi, you'd be at 5,000 to 6,000, okay? But you have people who write in and they say, me, I'm in a bed sitter, I'm living here in Nairobi, I have one bulb,
There are also regions.
and regions, by the way, we subsidize as well. So you will have certain parts of the country, the electricity is cheaper or more expensive. But at the end of the day, there should be an equitability. So your 3K now looks like 5K. And then when KPLC now brings its mathematics, you could go up to 15K or
Into something
20K
else.
or whatever.
I have another call on the line. Shay, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
We're
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Charity,
Yes.
I am middle class. I am lazy, self-proclaimed. Just give us a pay bill number and we'll support you.
Oh,
Thank
We
you.
may not go to the street. We may not, have all these things that you want us to do, but just give us a pay bill number.
Thank you so much. We did
And we will support your cause. Because
Thank you.
You have no idea how much lives you will be touching.
Thank you so much.
Life
and we
is already
value
very
that.
hard enough as it is, but because of corruption, a few powerful people, we are really suffering. So just give us a pay bill number or the
And you'll
GoFundMe.
support.
That's all I wanted to say. I would support.
Thank
Is
you.
there like a Facebook page or something?
It's just a hashtag switch off KPLC on Twitter, and on Facebook you'll find us through Buyer Beware.
Awesome.
And follow her on Twitter as well.
Follow me on Twitter
at
for the
Jerotich Say.
latest updates.
A charity say yes. I had that.
Say.
With a
Thank
J.
you so much, my dear. And you need protection. Is there anybody out there who can be
Well, let's just hope Providence and the good Lord protects me. I have no bodyguards, no nothing. Oops, I shouldn't say that.
Thank you, Shay. Let's take a break. I think we'll ask you to stay behind for a few minutes so we can come and conclude this conversation. We're coming up to 9 o'clock. It's been a wonderful 1 hour of having conversations about the energy sector in the country. In the studio on the hot seat is Charity Tsei at Charity Tsei, hashtag switch off KPLC. Remember, you can contribute to the conversation 0719 012 600, and also shortly she'll be giving us the pay bill number for this campaign. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
All right, Kangundo Road, not much issues there this morning. It was a bit clogged up about 20 minutes ago, but that's looking much better now. Traffic moving slowly along Thika Road from Muthaiga, but the jam now seems to take us all the way to Ngara. That has definitely changed, whereas it was Easy Street before. So let's see what happens to that. Likely to open up because everybody's entering into the city centre. Coming off of Riara Road, there seems to be some blockage of vehicles. That could be that they'll move in a short while as things offload, but that's affecting traffic coming out to the Ngong Road that is under construction at the moment, but that should be fine in a short while. Apart from that, not much in terms of incidences, nothing that we should be highly interested over at this point because there's not much traffic. 0719012600. Use the service lane on Thika Road. That's one piece of advice that we definitely will give. More coming soon. We'll let you know.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Nyeri Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
So, Chirochi, let's start with the pay bill number because that's what Shay asked you, and that was the last caller in the last hour.
Thank you. Our pay bill number is it's an M-Pesa pay bill. It goes to Barclays Bank, so it's 303030. So 303030. The account, I'm sorry, it's quite long, is 2040298625.
2040 29 86 25.
Correct. And the pay bill is 3030. Yes, and if anyone is interested, if they didn't catch it, I mean, we have it up on our Twitter handle. What I want to add about fundraising, because fundraising is always a bit dicey, we really don't call for the chums until we need them. So we do our work pro bono. But let's say we had to pay filing fees, or we had a march in July and we needed to have placards and posters and so on. We'll ask for that kind of support. But we want to be 100% accountable to the public by not just building a big pay bill. We end up with 10 million bob and then Chero is sipping a pina colada in Tahiti somewhere. We don't want that kind of confusion around why it is we're running Switch Off KPLC. But we are not shy. When we need the money, we will reach out. Yes. Like I said, we've raised about 176,000 so far, and we account back to the public and say this went to legal fees, this went to this and so on. So imagine for that amount of money how much we've been able to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Shay, who was talking to you about asking for the pay bill number, said, you know what, I'm a middle class, I'm lazy, self-acclaimed, and I will support you. Is that the kind of support that you're seeking? So people to say, well, I will not come out to the streets like the rest of you all. I'll just give you the money. You go and do what you want to do.
We take it all because I think there's also a hysteria around to be seen as a bona fide, legit activist. You have to be on the streets shouting, screaming, and so on. I mean, it's not always the case, and not everybody's cut out for that. Where I encourage the middle class is if you're thinking somebody else is going to fight for you, you're mistaken. So, for example, the caller who said, give us your pay bill number, that's our way of fighting. Because resistance comes in many forms, and we don't want to pigeonhole people into one particular place and say, if you're not in the streets, kama ujakula tear gas,
then
you're not a bona fide. No. So I really welcome all forms of support. And the biggest form of support is spreading the word. Chamas, churches, in your local on a Friday night, talk about it with your staff, with your friends, with your colleagues. Spread the word. so that nobody's sitting around somewhere in a corner thinking they're crazy. They're not crazy.
Right. I mean, you talk about that. It's interesting that you say spread the word, but I think that a lot of people unconsciously do some kind of comparative analysis, and they say, well, oh, come on, we have lights on at least 95% of the time. Why are we complaining? Whereas other countries, there's no power whatsoever. Their countries are not doing anything about their power. So, here we have it good. So really, even if we have to pay an extra few shillings, then why are we complaining? Unconsciously, people make that comparison and they say, okay, well, I'm not even going to bother with this because I have other things to worry about. How do we deal with such attitudes? Because I think that has been what would be the counter to a lot of protests that we see in different parts of the world. Chile, we have people protesting because of a rise of fare, kind of thing we've seen for the last 6 months.
Sudan was the cost of unga.
People unconsciously compare. And with that comparison, then comes some kind of mediocrity in terms of, okay, well,
before you answer that
I'm not going to bother.
Before you answer that, let's hear from Alan, and then you can answer both. Alan, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Miss MSA.
Yes.
I like your campaign because it's got purity. It has purity in the sense that in this country, if you start a campaign, people will bring tribalism and say, oh, these are just Kaleos trying to cry because they've been kicked out of KPLC.
Yeah.
But there are these guys called Wajiwaji. In their language, KPLC is what you would call an off-taker. It's the only off-taker. So you're right in saying it's the tip of the iceberg. But I want to encourage you from just consumer protection, move into bigger issues. Because if you look at the balance sheet of KPLC, the bloody thing is insolvent. It has a huge debt. And look, we have a very important utility in this country that's so important to the economy, which is broke and insolvent. In fact, if we had good company laws in this country, somebody would have said, switch just what you're saying. So please go into the big issues.
Burn down KPLC.
Look at the balance sheet and let's get the government to restructure the balance sheet of that organization, because you can't put everybody's life. Yeah, you can't to a broke utility.
Thank
Cheers.
you, Alan. Thank you.
I can only add a full stop there because I completely agree.
Enough
I
said.
agree with Alan. Enough said.
Drops mic.
But to answer the earlier question, and we have to ground some of these things in honesty and reality. I was in school, my kids' school, working on a payment plan for school fees. And of course, how shameful of Cherotich to dare talk about payment plans, because we're supposed to be wealthy, comfortable, middle class. And I asked the school accountant, I said, surely I'm not the only person who's come in to work on. And he said, this is one of the worst years ever. And you're talking about a middle class private school. And I said, Kumbe. And people come in their fuel guzzlers and they drop off their kids and everyone is well heeled and looks fantastic. But everybody's suffering. So to answer your question, looks, but they're not. Because if I'm broke today, my expensive shoes that I bought 7 years ago don't disappear like Cinderella. They're there. Right. So you can still look well heeled. You can still look okay. But your bank balance, go and see how people are fueling their vehicles. Whether they are saying Jazza, I'm a 500 bob, because you're deciding how you're going to feel. So the answer is, even that person who says, anyway, my lights are on 95% of the time, when the coin drops, they will realize I don't deserve. When Kenyans realize they don't deserve to be stolen from, they don't deserve to be ripped off, whether it's 1 shilling or 1,000 shillings or 100,000 shillings, then they will begin to wake up, because that 1,000 bob, that steady bleed, is interfering with your ability to pay school fees. It's interfering with your medicals. It's interfering with your pensions, with your savings. Are Kenyans even saving today?
The consequences is what we talk about all the time. And we say that, even when we talk about corruption, for example, and we say, okay, it's a big word that everybody throws about every now and then. It's always because of corruption. But really understanding the consequences of corruption, like you talk about it now, this extra money that goes in the bill that you would pay 201 and 50 of those shillings goes to some unexplained place. Imagine if that now money was put towards services that would benefit you as a citizen. So for people to understand, we're not talking about the word itself. itself, but the consequences of this action is how it
Correct.
actually affects you.
Correct. Correct.
I want to thank you very much for joining us, of course.
Thank
to
you
have this
so much
conversation.
for having me.
Eric, before you
Hashtag-
thank her off,
Mm.
there is a gentleman she reminds me of.
Right.
Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader actually spent a great portion of his life on consumer protectionism. Some of these things you take for granted in the States about quality, where whatever is on the label is actually what it is, and making it actionable and ensuring that people are actually held accountable for the things they say.
Yep.
He pushed this agenda for the longest time until it became commonplace that people expected a certain quality. It was expected.
And for a while, he was a lone ranger.
For the longest time, in fact, it was considered the auto industry in America, if demonized him, there's nothing they didn't do. But he guaranteed that people actually did what they actually said. So much as it seems that it's a David and Goliath issue, you must remember that Goliath is the one who died. It wasn't David.
That's what I'm counting on.
So moving forward, Eric, now
Thank
you may thank her off
Thank
now.
you for the encouragement. I appreciate it.
Carry the sling, get the hard stones as well. The pay bill number again, 303030 is a pay bill number, and the account number is 2040298625. That's 2040298625. But Cheryl says she will ask you when to contribute.
Somebody has just sent us 500, Bob. I've just
there
seen
you
it on
go.
my phone.
Fantastic.
Thank
There you
you
go.
so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Asante sana. Now, of course, we don't want you to leave because CT Muga wants to bring in another conversation. We'll be talking about it's what day again?
Seventh to seventh
It's
day.
a seventh day of Christmas.
It's the
This is the
eighth.
day when
No,
it's the
yesterday was the
seventh.
No, yesterday was the 6th.
Oh, God.
Today's Thursday.
Yesterday was the 5th. That's what she had told us. And today she
Explain
told us
this
it's
to
the
us.
7th.
This 12th up to the...
It starts on
what
the 12th, and
what
it's
is
12
the
days
history
until
behind
the
it?
20th. I'll tell you in a,
Okay,
in a
we'll
short
start
while.
with that actually. So, Sharon, please stay on for the next
If
40
you
minutes.
can.
This is another conversation.
12 days of Christmas, actually.
Yeah,
Oh,
we learned.
there
We
you
were
go.
forced to learn that one.
Gold rings.
Okay, 12 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Everything
13 after 9, this is a Situation Room live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. In the room, we have Eric Latif, CT Muga, Nyeri Thorn, Nduoko, and on the hot seat. No longer the hot seat now. It's actually now we've switched off the heat. It's now a kawaida seat on the in the Situation Room. It's Cherotitsei City.
Before Christmas was sold off to the barons of commercialization, it was one of these occasions when an ordinary Kenyan enjoyed something that in the course of the year they didn't quite. For instance, you enjoyed a soda. Yes, and you enjoyed chicken, and you enjoyed chapatis, and an endless amount of meat. And the good thing was you also got to talk and meet relatives who ordinarily you wouldn't meet because you all went to your rural home. Then the middle class grew and we started going to Naivasha, and then we started going to Mombasa. And then came the SGR. Now everybody goes to Mombasa. So if you happen to live in Nairobi and you go to Mombasa, rest assured, you will be actually meeting all the people you normally see in Nairobi in Mombasa. That's a guarantee. But all this commercialization is about the one day in the year that will celebrate something very special and very specific to those who subscribe to the Christian faith, the birth of Christ. It's celebrated as one thing by Christians, but it is celebrated differently in the sense that people celebrate the same event on different days. There are those who belong to, say, the Eastern Orthodox churches in what was previously Eastern Europe. They celebrate their Christmas on the 7th of January. Now, there are others in, say, Armenia who celebrate it on the 6th. Now, there was something we were discussing before all this, and I'll let and do get into the description of it. But why I bring Christmas into this discussion is because it is also one of the most expensive months of the year for most Kenyans. Exceedingly expensive. Because there are promises made and then which have to be kept. And it's a season when people feel that when requests are made, they should also be kept. If people ask for a loan, so anybody who wants to ask for a loan, this is the time to ask for a loan. You're likely to get it. But then the problem with this expense, it makes January an extremely long month. Because salaries are paid early for those who received salaries. They're paid before Christmas Day itself. So it means that by the time you get to January, chances are you will have absolutely no money. And when I say no money, I mean literally none whatsoever. So what then would you say are the joys of Christmas? Would you argue that it's short-lived during that period, and thereafter the stark naked suffering that must follow. But if we leave the economics aside and just focus on the religious aspect of it, the eating and the merrymaking is all good and well, but it's also a time for reflection. It's a time to reflect on who Christ is, who he means to you, and what it is that he's coming into the world represented. That is what I think we should consider. And when we do, all these wonderful ideas and ideals we keep talking about and hoping that our countrymen and our citizenry would espouse, it therefore means that there's a greater chance in the new year to actually put them into practice.
From a Christian perspective, I don't think it's the holiday where you really reflect. I think Easter, you might have that somberness of and time and space for reflection. Christmas is ordinarily celebrated with very little regard, and more so as we carry on, for the fact that it was Jesus' birthday. I find it's been commercialized. A lot of the traditions around it, a Christmas tree, we put snow as Kenyans on our Christmas tree.
We do have snow in Kenya, just so that you understand, Jerry, we do.
The idea of presents and turkey and stuffing, bread sauce, that sort of thing. It's a very
We normally
Western-
do with chicken.
And goat.
Yes.
Or chicken and goat, yes. It's very little to do with God and Jesus. I think Easter is more the celebration or the day that people do what you're supposing or suggesting we should do.
Do you people agree with Njeri on this?
I think you'll find that the two are quite big on the Christian calendar as, festivities that you celebrate. I mean, the birth of Jesus, without which there would be no Easter.
Of course, he wasn't born on the 21st or on the 25th.
It doesn't matter.
It was around the time.
That was a
We are
pagan.
We are celebrating.
But
the
how
birth.
many people remember that this is the day Jesus Christ was born? Most people on Easter are
All
very
Christians.
aware. Even as Christians, you'll find they get caught up in celebrations. Maybe commercialism has overtaken the event.
But
with
That's
Easter,
why you have
Easter
phrases
is more-
like "remember the reason
They'll
for
go
the
to
season."
church. There's a
Easter
Christmas
is more
week,
poignant
and then there's a
in
Christmas
terms of
day.
Jesus
Okay,
Christ.
did we actually get independence in 1963 when we had the celebration, or had it come earlier?
Or did you get it in 1964?
Yes, or perhaps
when we became a
65.
republic?
Where is this going? Sorry.
I'm trying to explain that when you have a celebration, you're celebrating an occasion, so the actual date becomes superficial. It's not that important.
But we have forgotten what it is we're celebrating with Christmas. I think the traditions and the
haven't.
consumerism have overtaken it. Easter is more a poignant time, and it's when people do this reflection
the
that
Easter
you're talking
egg?
about.
And the Easter bunny?
It hasn't overtaken things like the
It's not as
Christmas
big
tree and the
as-
Christmas presents have. Let's hear from Say before she goes, because...
No, I'm with you, Njeri, in that I feel growing up, Christmas, maybe because we're all in shags and you go to church and you have the sense of giving and celebration was less obscenely commercialized. It was a time when people came together, celebrated the birth of Christ, and if that's what you believe, if you're a Christian, then it really it held more meaning, at least for me, way back when. But with the what is it, the Black Friday business immediately after Thanksgiving in the States and the Christmas sales begin, I don't see it anymore. And at some point at home, if you come to my house, there's not a single Christmas tree or light or anything that's sparkling, because I also told my children, I said, it's all commercial stuff. If we're going to have fun this Christmas, it's because we're with cousins, we're with family, we're with friends, we're remembering the birth of Christ. But I've lost that sense a little bit because of the commercialization and the pressure you have, and that's That's why everybody's so broke in January. And for 3 or 4 days, you're living large. Maybe one would say that's a respite after a terrible year. You have 3-4 days of having fun. But I also want to say broadly about Christianity, and as a Christian, I suppose, a bedside Baptist often, but as a Christian, I would say that the faith that comes with Christianity has by and large been lost in the Christian space in Kenya because of what we see, the fundraisers in church, all of these things. There's something, Christianity is anything but. And so the idea of the birth of Christ, which is supposed to spiritually mean something, touch you if you believe and you say this is the day that Christ the Savior was born, it's all gone because church has become a facade for so many other things. The worst types of people are there, and as my father said, maybe church was for the sinners. That's why you're a sinner, so you go to church. So I just feel by and large very sad that when kids think of Christmas, it's only about the most expensive pair of sneakers or a Christmas tree or something. We've forgotten that togetherness. If we could bring that back, if we could just have a nice big bash without single present being exchanged, and that big bash is not about the turkey or the chicken, it's about the togetherness. That is lost, and I miss that immensely. And maybe that's why people bugger off to the coast if they can afford it,
to run away from reality.
To run away from all of that. Yeah,
to run away from the relatives.
From the relatives and the reality.
I suppose now with so much interconnection, WhatsApp groups and phones and transport, we see a lot more, we interact a lot more with relatives than we did previously. I suppose before Christmas was an occasion to do that. Now it's been watered down because it's been happening throughout the year. But CT says that it's this one day that we practice, or rather we prepare for, and we spend so much money on. Sorry, was it 2 days?
No. This tradition of putting words in my mouth and my mouth into your words.
Sorry, go on. You did talk about the fact that it was...
I used one word, reflection.
No. Yes, that's another point which we talked about. But you said...
No, we didn't. I actually mentioned that it ought to be a time for reflection. Given everything that I had said, I said reflection.
So
I understand that, but that's not what I want to
You're
deal
saying
with.
what they're saying, that people have forgotten that it's a time that they should
where
reflect.
Nyeri was
No,
going.
you don't know where I was going.
I do know.
You don't.
You always
haven't
end
heard
up at
what
the
I was
same
saying.
spot.
No, I don't.
Always. But
CT, what I was coming to
Yes.
is you were talking about the fact that it's for this one day that there's such a build-up. We spend so much money and end up with a really long, dry January. I don't think it's just the one day. It's the anticipation of it, the build-up to it, all those things that share the sort of feel-good factor. Even in the studio, we're a bit happier than we were, say, last week. There's an element of joy around us. So I don't think it's for this particular, the 25th. I think that's the marker.
It's a season.
It's a season, absolutely. And there is a lot of sharing and giving and caring around that time.
remember, it's the end of a year. And it's supposed to indicate the end of something, apart from just the calendar year coming to an end, right? And the way we are wired and structured as human beings, we don't do very well with continuous negativity. So this is the one point in the year when we allow more positivity than any other time. And again, so you combine it with the end of the year, the beginning of the year. That's why people even bother with New Year resolutions that they do not keep beyond the 10th of January. So these are hopeful adventures into trying to ensure that things at least appear better. This is you cheering yourself up. And I was saying, reflect. Reflection doesn't necessarily mean you'll be happy at the end of the reflection, but yes, but give it time, ponder and think about these things. This year that you are celebrating everything.
Why not do that on New Year's and just drink and be merry on Christmas? Like, don't ruin it, CT.
Okay.
With all this reflection.
All right, Nyeri,
sort of profound suggestions.
Okay, let's go with this. Let's do the reflection in March then, shall we?
No, I think the New Year is as good a time as any, especially because it's the beginning of something. So you have that opportunity to renew.
They're just 7 days apart.
Renewed
you
vigor.
know?
Yes.
Right.
So
Just
leave
Christmas and
this
New Year,
reflection
it's-
out of Christmas. I don't feel Christmas is for that.
So what do you want to do on Christmas?
What do I want to sit with my family and eat lots of food and drink lots of wine and just enjoy myself. I don't want to have to sort of, do any self-reflect. No, I don't want to think.
So
I
you
think
wanna,
every day
you
for
wanna
what?
be by yourself on the New Year.
Not by my, on New Year.
No, said family. She said she wants to be
On
with the
Christmas,
family.
Christmas, family. New Year, reflection by myself.
No,
like
after
some alone
hanging out
time
with the
at a corner
mates.
somewhere.
Actually, by the way, the new year itself lends itself to reflection.
Yes.
You actually don't need to plan for it. It will. Because the reality of your misdeeds in Christmas will catch up with you around that time. So you will be thinking.
You don't have a choice.
No, you will be thinking.
What are you doing with
I think
yourself?
that happens
this
on the
Christmas?
4th.
The one thing I do is I make sure I don't travel.
On Christmas.
That period,
Mhm.
I do not, unless, like now, there's a funeral I have to attend, say in Mombasa, I will go.
Hmm. Why don't you travel? Safety reasons?
No. It's not safety.
He's avoiding family.
No, but if I stay put, they'll find me. So traveling, actually, I'm doing the complete opposite. What I do on a daily basis involves a lot of traveling. So that's the one period in the year where I now avoid traveling.
Take a break from that.
Yes, because I travel a great deal.
Say, what are you doing over Christmas?
I'm staying put. Actually,
Staycation.
I'm not the only wise person.
It's a staycation. Also, Shags for us would be LD, those sides. And, the roads are incredible. And, you don't want to fly because you're carrying stuff and you're many of you and so on. And anyway, you don't want to fly those planes that you don't take off or lose wheels or whatever. And it's terrible. By the time we get there, we are so frazzled. Our nerves are raw. We just, so we're staying put. And Nairobi is very pleasant when it's empty.
It is, isn't it?
No traffic.
But I have a hypothesis that this Christmas, Nairobi will be quite busy.
Because everybody
because
said the same
people
thing.
are broke.
Oh, right.
People are broke and they're not going to go shags to be sumbuliwad by people and they can't afford their usual middle-class aspirational Mombasa holidays and so they're going to stay put. So I'll be doing my little survey. I'll see how busy the streets
There are
are.
many excuses.
Naivasha.
There are many excuses. It's flooded everywhere else.
Eric, what's your Christmas about?
Amboseli is closed, so Mombasa also, remember the roads and all. I mean, it's a hassle. And you're talking about Eldoret, the roads.
SGR.
You just heard.
The buses have
Eldoret,
been,
the
have
roads.
been licensed.
NTSA has revoked licenses.
Yeah, so you can't really travel. So
nobody's
stay
going
put.
anywhere.
What's your Christmas about, Eric?
Stay put.
You're staying put
Yes.
in the station?
Yes.
You love being here, don't you? Eric will be here 6 a.m. 25th.
To 10 a.m.
And he'll be asking, where are the people?
Where is everybody?
Why are you guys calling? I think it's about
traveling.
what the way you're talking about. I think it's about you want to spend time with your family, and that's what happens. This is also the other part of commercialization. I think part of that commercialization was showing that you need to be with family. Of course, being with family means that you're gifting, that therefore you have purchasing to do, and you're doing a lot of travel as well. So spending time with family is one of the things that has been pegged with Christmas. And the reflection of going to church and thinking, okay, so Jesus was born, this is the day when he was born, so that he will come and save us. It happens, for a couple of hours when you go to church, or if you're watching, like Charo is saying, watching this from the bedside, and streaming something somewhere, and you're playing some good Christmas music on a Christmas morning, and then that's it, and you enjoy. You basically just have time with family.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't go to church?
No, go to church.
Go to midnight mass and then get it out of the way and then continue with Christmas.
So the
what
following
Jerry
morning-
is saying is, wherever you are at, take a 1 hour break, go to mass, and then go back
And
to
then
where
go
you
back
were.
and continue the activities.
Have I got you correctly, Jerry?
But even with mass over Christmas or midnight mass, it doesn't have that religious heaviness that you can sometimes have. Sorry, I know that sounds like an oxymoron.
It is. It
But
doesn't. Exactly. Yes.
There
It
is
doesn't have the
still-
gravitas.
For me, there is still an element of tradition with the Christmas carols, and I don't feel as religious with Christmas mass. It means something else. It's not like going to ordinary mass where you have the usual. It feels different, and it's not because it's Jesus' birthday. It's because it's so steeped in different tradition that I tie in with good memories and family. That's what it brings up in me.
Correct. I was going to actually ask what you just said. Wouldn't you say that it's the history of what Christmas has been that even propels you in adulthood to celebrate
To
Christmas?
celebrate it, absolutely. Remembering what you
Yes.
did as children, remembering
Yes.
what the traditions were, things that you used to do when you were a child is what you want to kind of relive.
And especially
in
the memories
present.
are happy ones.
Right.
Yeah, if they're not happy, you will not enjoy Christmas.
Sure.
Is that also? Can we also use that to explain the frustration that people are expressing in the studio this morning? So when you were young,
People are
people were
expressing frustration in the
It's no
studio?
longer. It's no longer this. It's no longer what it used
No,
to
no,
be.
no, but when you're young, you sat and received.
It was somebody else's
You didn't have to spend
responsibility.
it. You didn't have the
to make your
responsibility of
Christmas.
making things
Now-
happen.
Now suddenly
you do.
it's your
It's
responsibility
not
to
as
make
fun, is
somebody
it?
else's Christmas,
Yeah.
and that's where the frustration comes in. You're feeling, now everybody expects something from me.
But look at the Kenyanization of it, okay? the gentleman that represents that gifting is called Santa Claus in many parts of the world. Here is Father Christmas. So when it is assumed that you are the sort of person to whom one can go to receive such largesse, you will be nicknamed Father
Christmas.
Yes. Have you heard of Mother Christmas?
No, but I think
Father
they must
Christmas.
be a Mrs.
Claus.
I don't think he's single, and I don't think he's gay. So I think
He may not be, but she's
they-
left
they
up
must
north.
be.
He just travels by himself.
You're going somewhere. You're traveling.
Yep, I am.
Where to?
I'm going to see my village uncles, village elders.
Nigeria.
Yes, Nigeria, absolutely.
And her mother.
My mommy. Okay.
Yes.
Tell us about where you're
Mothers
going.
are always mummies, so
Yeah,
understandable.
always
yes.
be mommy. Well, I mean, definitely going home, and I think it's something that people definitely. You kind of always go to the. You go home at Christmas time because it's a time when everybody can be together. The year has been busy. People are running all over the place. So of course, there's that whole feeling of family and such. But then also, I mean, coming from my point of view, where family has not been seen for some time, then there's excitement around it, and also remembering. And now then, they're children of another generation involved. So everybody's being brought home to the nest, as it were. So definitely, and I think it does resonate because you remember things that you did as a child that you can now then do for your own children. So I think it's an important
And what do you guys
exciting
eat?
moment.
Are you still into jollof rice and moi moi, or do you get into the
You do
turkey thing?
I mean, turkey. No, it's chicken now.
No. Start with, do
Chicken.
they have turkey?
Hey, stop it. Actually, turkey has actually taken press, but then we Niger it up because turkey is actually quite a bland meat. But we spice it up
Jerk turkey.
as with many other things in the country.
What is jerk turkey?
It's like jerk chicken, but turkey.
What is jerk
What is jerk
chicken?
It's like Jamaican
It's
flavored
been spiced
chicken.
up. It's
Jerk.
add some flavor
Oh,
to
they've
it.
jerked it up.
There you go.
Jerked it up or jacked it up?
That's what I'm asking. Because jacking is the jack bit is actually lifting. Jerking is probably pulling its leg.
29 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. Let's take a look at what's happening on the roads and then continue the conversation.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
So after rejoicing that everything was going along smoothly, Kipande Road is a complete mess and nobody's getting in or out apparently. And we're also asking what's happening on Juja Road because there is quite some traffic there as well. It's weird that it started now, but it's there all the same. Let's see if we can find alternate routes. We see a small accident on Thika Road involving a lorry that's causing a jam at the Makindi area. So you might want to use the service lane to be able to get out of there. So that's affecting traffic getting into Ngara and also Pangani thereafter. Let's see what happens. It's slow, but it's moving and it will get you out in a short while. Apart from that, everything else, easy streets. You see something out of the ordinary, do let us know. 0719 012 600.
.1 Spice FM. Kisi. The 80s have never sounded so good.
My favorite songs of the 1980s.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's 25 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Remember, we are broadcasting from Nairobi on 94.4. We're in Mombasa on 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, Nakuru 96.0, Eldoret 96.7, 90.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi 97.7. Live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE. On YouTube, our channel is Spice FM KE. And our website is www.spicefm.co.ke. Talking about Christmas.
You know, one of the things that is easy to take for granted are the things that we consider commonplace, like holidays that appear every year. And why I threw in the word reflection into this discussion is for that very purpose. We think that the 1st of January is the day for that, the day when we make those so-called resolutions. And we forget that actually we make resolutions throughout the year. We just don't tag them as resolutions, but we do. Because the things that pertain to our lives actually don't occur during that space of time. It occurs throughout the year. But reflection, as in not thinking through an issue as you do on a daily basis, but taking stock, sitting back literally, because the period affords you that, because there isn't much happening anyway. Most places are, I mean, with the exception of entertainment places and places that provide certain services, you have time that ordinarily you wouldn't have. So that particular time is one that could be used in pondering. And pondering doesn't mean thinking for 30 seconds and then moving and say, I've pondered. No.
What if you're tired after 30 seconds, CT?
Then take a rest.
And think again.
And then ponder again.
Are we talking about Christmas now or New Year's?
I'm talking about that period.
Right.
Right up to New Year. And I bring it. You can't have the discussion and not bring in what traditionally is considered a time for reflection, which is a new year, as in embedded in New Year resolutions. So I have to bring that into the discussion. But I cannot be prescriptive and say what people should think and decide. But what I would consider for myself is perhaps take into consideration what and how else I could participate in issues that really affect my life, like the ones which were brought up regarding KPLC.
Right.
Because what was discussed, even I suffer from. I mean, there are bills you look at, and I've wondered and wondered and wondered. Yes. And like an ordinary Kenyan, so long as I'm able to pay, I will kick a bit of a fuss, and that's just about it. And maybe I may write a few letters, and that's just about it. But some changes require a little more than that. It requires participation, perhaps with a group that's already that way inclined. For the same reason we join political parties. This particular power political party is a party that I am going to consider joining. Because when I was listening to the discussion, this power, KPLC scam, is bigger than any scam we've had in the country. It outstrips any other, because it's not a scam that happens with one event like a dam. It happens every single day.
And for over a prolonged period.
Yes. And it continues. It has been there and it's continuing. What I have seen today is the equivalent of an epiphany. So, yes.
The lights have come
The light has come, and at the right time, around Christmas time. Yes. So all that glittering light that one normally sees on a Christmas tree, they're happening in my head. Yes, and I'm saying, I knew there was something wrong, but the degree to which it was wrong, I didn't know. But now I do.
You see, when even that first time when the conversation started, of course, when the switch of KPLC campaign started, people joined. People were very much in support of it. And of course, when they heard that the matter had been settled out of court, people just, many went quiet. We didn't see a sort of a backlash on the principles of that campaign. saying that this is what has happened. So now we're going to take off side B of this. You see a couple of them, just 6 of them, like Cherotich is telling us, just 6 of them are the ones who are continuing with this push on the front lines of this. It's something that happens with Kenyans, and it happens. You feel okay, so this guy was paid.
It's normal.
Just messed it up for us, and so we continue. So what is it that you would like to do, CT, now that you have had this epiphany, to continue to ensure that you sustain the conversation?
He did.
I did.
To ensure that you sustain this, you actually have a resolution now, and to ensure that you actualize your resolution.
One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to research into the use of solar. Very, very seriously for my own purposes. I've used it at home. We've had it at home in the rural areas. But I want to look at it on a grander scale because given the development in that industry from what I have read, for me, it will provide me with the sort of alternative that I need.
So you become your own IPP and
yes,
you become
exactly.
your own...
Yes.
KPLC.
That is precise, but my own KPLC. These are the people's KPLC.
And you pay and use.
Yes, exactly. Because, like some of the bills I get in the rural areas, you would actually think that we're running some industry from that particular homestead. You look and you wonder, what on earth is this? So, I had seen it. I hadn't kicked a fuss about it, but the fuss is in my head. And that's where it should be. Yes. Second, you see, all the measures people take to say save power don't work.
They don't work.
Not with the sort of... These guys, these are clever people who have put together a really clever scam. You cannot escape. There's no... It doesn't matter what you think
So you might as well leave your heater on. It's fine.
Just leave the heater on, for heaven's sake. In fact, when you enter the house, just leave all the lights on. Yes, it's not as though it's going to change much.
For the audience, CT.
Yes.
Right.
If I can also find light and power that is gas supported, meaning I'm going to look for any and everything that does not directly need electricity. Yes.
Get biogas, get solar, get wind, have some sort of wind turbine outside.
I'm going to think about all those things. All those things.
That's the reflection you'll be doing over Christmas.
Costing. The reflection will involve costing, figuring out how much it costs, and how I need to space it, etc., etc.
What were you planning to reflect on if Cherotich Say hadn't come in? I mean, because this epiphany has happened because of her conversation.
No, it's just added to the epiphany. What I was going to be thinking of are the things that I'm going to do differently in the new year. Instead of, because I have a very welfare attitude towards money and towards things. And I want to, I've been trying to figure out how I can be more business-like.
Are you going to stop buying us breakfast, CT? Is this what you're saying?
No. That's not welfare.
Okay.
No, that's
welfare for some people.
No,
it's welfare for us. You buy us breakfast every day.
No, that's charity.
All right, okay.
Tis the season for charity.
Yes.
So you're saying you're going to be less charitable, or
I
you're
am going to
turn
be
it
more
into a business?
calculating in my charity.
Right.
That's
Are we
what I'm
still
saying.
getting breakfast from you next year, every day?
You will get tea.
All right. No sausages, eggs, no?
Sausages, eggs, of course you'll get sausages
All right,
and eggs.
okay.
So long as you pay for them.
All right. See, this Christmas pondering and reflection, it's not always good, is it?
No, it is.
It came with a structural adjustment program for the government. What was it that we were now meant to do? The COPE, right?
Yes, exactly. One of the things that happened was the World Bank told the government of the time to sell all the houses it had. I'm simplifying the situation.
Move away from welfare.
Yes, you cannot, this thing of housing people. It was one of the worst decisions that could ever have been made. It opened such a Pandora's box that we haven't recovered from to date. Yes.
What happened? Which houses were sold?
Any government house. One, official.
So that's why Upper Hill is no longer government.
It is no longer government. Remember, if you're a government officer, you had an opportunity to actually be given the first priority to buy the house. The Ndungu report is full of names. If you happen to have bought, whatever you call it, you're in the Ndungu report.
Let's go back to Christmas instead of politics. That's where this is headed very quickly.
It's already there. It isn't headed.
Ndu, what's traditional in Nigeria in terms of eating and sort of activities for Christmas?
Well, I mean, definitely it's eating. A lot of people definitely will go to church. People go to church, and then after that, it's throwdown in terms of food and merriment and, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, people are buying gifts. There's a lot of flashing about.
Flossing.
Of course, definitely.
Chopping money.
In this case, chopping food. But yeah, definitely. And it's interesting because it's around the country. People have started their shopping. People started shopping last week. People are putting things together because then.
Do they have Christmas trees and that sort of thing?
Yeah, people
Is
have
that
Christmas tree, but Christmas trees and things like that, decorations. Some people go out, quite out. I mean, the major cities in Nigeria right now are decorated to the T and things like that. But it's interesting because these things take time. And so people want to go to church. I mean, it's like when you said that, I thought of that. People want to go to church and get it out of the way to then come back and start. Because like Nigerian food is a process. You don't just throw it in the pan and you're done. It's a process. It takes time. That certain
So
things
it's
that you put
Nigerian
together.
food you eat.
Well, I mean,
not-
it's jollof. Nobody's gonna do a pie kind of thing.
Right.
You see what I mean? So it's
So there's no jollof pie.
Sorry, no. It's a
moi moi is a
process.
pie.
And you won't find moi moi is it's just okay. But it's a process. It's still so people then get involved in the process, and you find that people will do the whole preparations the day before, so you can come the next day and put it together. But then it's
buying new clothes. That was quite a tradition in Kenya. I
it
remember
is
wearing
people
new
buy
clothes.
people have
New
gone
clothes.
around the world
Yes.
to buy new clothes for themselves.
Yes, you
and
do. So that
what am I going to wear for Christmas?
On Christmas Day when you go to church,
You outshine the outshiners.
What my memories as a child is these squeaky sounds. It's the squeaky sounds of new clothes.
Yes.
Everyone in that church, every child has new clothes, and woe to the child who has ill-fitting clothes.
You stand out like a sore thumb.
You can see the discomfort, or the one who has a prospective parent who looks into the future. So the thing clearly doesn't.
I'm
fit.
buying this one now. Next year I won't buy for the next.
And they do
12
that with
months.
shoes as well.
Yes.
I think the one thing I will remind parents, especially those with young children, is to buy batteries. Because one of the worst things for me, one of my worst nightmares over Christmas, is to buy the children gifts and presents that require batteries. And of course, all shops are closed, so the kids don't get to enjoy their batteries. I've had that misfortune maybe 2 or 3 times now. So buying batteries. A lot of toys nowadays require batteries, especially if you have boys who want swords and things like that, gadgets that require batteries.
As you say this, I think those who want to travel should travel. And if you have to travel by car, you should. But there's something about traveling and speeding. People seem to be in a hurry to get to where they're going. My late father once mentioned something to me when I was driving him. It was a treat to drive my father when I was I'd just gotten a license. It was, a treat. And he asked, but I mean, these people who seem to be in a hurry, didn't they know where they were going before they got onto the road? And if they did, why didn't they just start the journey? Yeah, why didn't they start earlier? Yes, so that you can actually enjoy your travel and drive gently and drive slowly. I cannot tell you the number of accidents I have foreseen on Mombasa Road during either Easter when I'm traveling on that road. And in my mind, I'm saying we're going to have an accident here. And indeed, some 40 kilometers down the road, there's some 5 cars, and some of them are the ones I had seen involved in an accident. And it's not because people are driving slowly. No.
People are driving fast. It's that attitude. You're in this merrymaking mood. You're feeling like you're invincible, so you're driving as you wish, overtaking dangerously.
It's actually dangerous. And also remember, our roads are wetter now. So it means the control of your vehicle will be less in your hands than it usually is. And also, if you must travel, service your vehicle.
Right, I think there is a call generally. I don't think we've had a Christmas, unfortunately, in the last few years where we haven't had some of the accidents we see with multiple fatalities over that time. And really, I think it's important to just put it out there again that, we need to be extremely careful, especially with the weather conditions that we're seeing this year, specifically in different parts of around the country. So, I think it is necessary that we wear that hat of consciousness while, then trying to ply the roads. And at the same time, I do know it would sound like preaching, but at the same time, often is the temptation to drive while under the influence of alcohol. or drugs. And it, again, is a period where people feel, okay, well, nobody's really on the roads. I can make it to where I'm going in time. Plus, it's a season of merriment. But you don't want it in any situation to end in death like that, which we've unfortunately seen, and especially at times like this.
So let's open up the phone lines as well and have callers call in and contribute to this conversation. 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. We're basically reflecting ahead of the official time to reflect. When does it begin, CT? Is it from...
CT started a couple of weeks ago. Where were you?
From the 1st of December to the 2nd of January?
Eric, we work in the same space with you. And this discussion is something I've had. Remember the mirth, remember the joyous disposition I had, and I gave you reasons for it.
Yours concludes on the 24th.
Yes.
But now the time that you're discussing of reflection...
Profound reflection is I think, what you refer to. It begins at the end of the 24th.
Okay.
Yes.
So from the 26th?
From the 24th.
Why are you missing out the 25th?
Because he's not going to be happy on the 25th.
He'll just not be there.
Eric, on the 25th, you will be spending money, as will I. That is a time for reflection.
I see.
Yes.
10 minutes to 10 o'clock.
Spice and everything nice. Alright, okay.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Did this commercialization of this festive seasons actually take away a lot from the meaning of the day?
It did.
The meaning of the season?
It did.
Sure.
It actually did, because it then became the norm.
Yeah.
I mean, do you remember for the longest time, Easter was synonymous with Safari Rally?
Yes.
So, yes, people went to church, but Safari Rally. Okay? It's just a reality that people have to understand and learn to cope with. And also remember, if you are the relative who is considered to be well off or better off, okay, people expected to come and eat you and to drink you. I think, spoken like a Kenyan, you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
So they would actually come specifically to eat you. And it was expected that you allow them to come and eat you at that particular time of the year, because, well, they are your people. And that's one of the, in fact, the only time of the year when you can actually get together even for a day or two and see the same people a day or two. If one goes by if I go by the memories of my youth, it was the one time I saw all my cousins and what have you. And why this was useful, any bonding that was formed in our childhood, a lot of it would be formed during that particular period. So as adults, I would have something to say to this relative. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have had anything in common with these. Because they may have been children of my father's sisters or brothers, but in the absence of this particular holiday period, because it wasn't a day, it was something like a week.
Yeah,
so we spent a lot of time together during that week. So that enabled a certain bonding to take place. And for me, it was very useful. Because otherwise, and their relatives I would never otherwise have met or known if it wasn't for those periods. I would know they exist, but I wouldn't know who they are and what they look like. So it's something that, to me, even to date, that meaning to me is still useful.
Definitely.
A time when actually people can get together. In the course of the year, you may send emails, you may WhatsApp, but when you actually get to sit and talk to someone, it's completely different.
Some people avoid that altogether. And so
they do. That's why we have SGR and that's why we have Mombasa. If you had
the
that,
very thought of meeting maybe the in-laws and so on can be quite daunting for some.
Yeah, it
So
can.
It's not such a pleasant experience. It's not something they're looking forward to. And perhaps there is alternatives like Mombasa, as you
That
say.
is actually usually the flip side of relations, isn't it? There'll be the pleasant memories of relations. There'll be the ones you really do not want to entertain because it's nothing but misery. Yes, there's that.
Do you have a Christmas tree up at home?
Christmas tree. Okay.
No?
No, I don't have one yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
Should we go and buy one after this together?
Nope.
Why not?
No, we have one in storage. All we need to do is bring it up, stuff it, dust it, and then put it up. But and switch and
Put on the
plug it
lights.
and plug it.
Into KPLC.
Yes, into KPLC. And that's it. It exists.
Okay.
So I don't have to acquire
So
one.
you'll be putting one up this year? I'm
Definitely.
sure. Oh, good. Ndu?
That
Are you
makes
guys
you
doing a
happy?
Christmas tree? Yes. These are the traditions
And
I like.
we will
But
bring
yeah,
it
for
down
sure.
well into the middle of January or towards the end of January.
No. You shouldn't leave it past the 6th. It becomes bad luck.
Sorry.
Because the 6th is when you should bring it down.
You have to bring it down.
Folks,
Otherwise, it's bad luck.
Folks.
And we need
sorry.
all the luck.
End of January.
Right.
Yes.
That's when you'll
It's
bring
when
it
you'll
down.
bring it down because you'll still
Okay.
be in the Christmas spirit.
Yes.
Understood. I think the thing is that with the Christmas, the first Christmas was, say, if you look at the birth of Jesus Christ, and after that there was a celebration in the what we'd call the empire. There was a celebration, and I think over time that celebration is what has kept in terms of tradition. And it is now that we see, which has then been forgotten as per the reasons why this holiday is celebrated. But it was the celebration that I took that has now taken center stage, and then with the celebration comes certain things that you need to celebrate, and those things are what have been commercialized over time. Because I mean, some of the things you see around the world, it's crazy what people do when it comes to trinkets and things like that are sold, and the monumental, it's just like mind-gripping activity that happens around this time. But if you ask some of the people who are enterprising in this business or in the commercialization of it, they don't even know anything about the holiday in the first place, or really it's Christmas, and with that comes with all the fanfare and all the ornamental, it becomes really crazy. But I do think that yes, essentially the meaning or the original meaning behind this particular holiday or these festivities has been forgotten.
I think more so in the West, where religion, of course, is on the decline. Yeah.
It's not even regarded. Yeah,
I think the prediction is that Christianity will be extinct in the next 50 years. This is in the UK, according to research and reports. Now, if you take that into account and then think about what Christmas means to most people, it is purely a time to eat, drink, make merry, and enjoy presents. And then there's some traditions, the mistletoe and so on, the elf on the shelf, Santa, and so on.
This thing called eggnog.
What is it?
Yes, exactly. And it's something you drink, isn't it?
It's eggnog, yes.
So when do
mulled
people
wine.
drink it?
Where do people drink it?
When?
Around
Christmas Eve.
time.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve.
What is it
That
exactly?
and mulled wine. Eggnog is a milky drink. Mulled wine is wine with sort of fruity
Eggnog. Don't deflect.
Okay.
Eggnog.
It's a milky sweet drink.
Yeah.
Made
You
from-
can add alcohol, cream.
It's cream.
Primarily.
Yeah,
What is
cream.
it?
Some people use
So why is
yogurt.
it called eggnog?
Where's the egg?
Interesting.
Was it
Well,
Does
to
it
me,
taste
it
like
tastes
egg?
like cream. I should hope it doesn't have raw egg in it because I wouldn't be drinking
It
it.
actually does.
It's creamy. It's a white, creamy, sweet drink. Sometimes you add a shot
Sickly
of Baileys
sweet
to
or
it.
just sweet?
Sickly sweet. It's not something I would have other than the fact that it was Christmas. And then there's mulled wine. That's something else that's drunk during Christmas, which is wine boiled with sort of herbs, so aniseed and so on. And that too is disgusting. But you have it over Christmas because that's what people do. It's not something you'd ever drink outside Christmas. Also, it's warm. Mulled
But you
wine.
it is warm. But then you understand where mulled wine was drank it was the winter season, so they needed something warm.
But it's been
Something
winter
to
all
heat you
through,
up.
other than on Christmas Day.
Right, but then it was a celebratory drink as well, and it had to be. It was actually originally drank warm. Yeah. Eggnog
You
does
would
have
tell us
eggs,
about-
it's whites and yolk, for your information. So you have been ingesting raw eggs in your eggnog, honey.
Not cream.
There's cream also.
There's cream also.
Oh, okay. I just taste the cream. What
you
other
would tell us about
traditions do they
the
have?
12 days of Christmas.
Well, actually, it was kind of like an ancient day nursery rhyme, and there was 10 days of Christmas, and then over time 2 days were added, and it was kind of like a nursery rhyme that had a lot of alliteration in it, and so they used it to teach children how to count originally, but then they added all these other fun things to it. So it was the first day of Christmas that then would start on day 12 and end on Christmas Eve. So that and then it was combined with the tradition of giving gifts at Christmas time. And so that's where you had it. So it was combining love and joy and gift
Actually,
giving.
there's a religious twist to it as well. It's something that the Christian church called Advent. And the 12 days was actually the preparation for Christmas Day, and it was normally marked by fasting. So you didn't sort of like celebrate Christmas, just like in Easter, people fast before the actual, okay? Now, Advent is that period of fasting that Christians have before Christmas. It's a tradition that many people have forgotten. And some people said it comprised of 4 Sundays. Others That's what the 12 days that you're talking about. They'd say you'd at least fast for those 12 days. Yes. Now, those who celebrate Christmas on the 6th of January took it even further, because they would even take it further, and after that, they would end that period of that Advent period, or what they call an Epiphany, after 40 days.
Right.
But those are Christian traditions.
Right.
Yes.
As we come to the conclusion of the end of the show, it's not Christmas Day tomorrow yet. We'll still be here. Let's say our goodbyes. Your closing remarks on this CT Epiphany.
Well, have a reflective day.
Have a reflective day.
Yes.
I'm hoping I'm here tomorrow. I can feel a sore throat coming on, so hopefully I'll be here.
Okay. Message taken. Ndu.
Have a good day, folks.
Have a good day as well. Of course, you remember that between 3 and 7 you'll be with Monique taking you home on Spice Drive, and then Adults in the Room will be with you again from 7 to 10 o'clock. We will be back tomorrow from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. I leave you now with uninterrupted music between now and 3 o'clock. The likes of R. Kelly, Janet Jackson, Luther Vandross, Whitney Houston, the best of the 80s and the 90s. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
Sugar and spice and everything nice, everything nice. Spice FM.
Are you ready? Cruising through the golden years on 94.4 Spice FM.